anyways, and so it's just like, so what about some climate change? And she just, oh my God, like it's a spoof, like it's a conspiracy theory. And she's just like, wait a minute. So there's a scientific consensus and you don't believe it? And she's like, no, they're just trying to make money. Because it was Al Gore or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, trash. Anyways, this is not the Joe Rogan Experience.
It's not.
This is the.
You are tuned in to Self-Hired. In the mix.
In the mix. I'm here. I'm here with someone super dope.
That's what the kids are saying nowadays.
That's what the kids are saying. I don't know. I have a very insightful, intelligent, impactful engineer and producer out of North Vancouver who's worked with what I consider the best artists in BC to be in the urban genre.
Urban music, yeah.
Urban music?
Hip-hop, R&B, and everything in between.
Do you do reggae?
Done a bit of reggae, but I definitely wouldn't identify as a reggae guy.
Okay, yeah.
I like reggae.
I mean, the phone's open. But someone who's worked with guys from, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Terrell Safadi, Mercules, Snack. Who else am I missing right now? There's tons of guys you've worked with. T-Loke.
Lots of guys over the past decade and a half. I've been recording rap music in Vancouver, so I've been blessed to work with, like many of the guys that have been doing it a long time. I'm working with a lot of fresh talent, up and coming guys. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Who are you looking out for in Vancouver right now? Who are the young guys coming up?
Well, there's a lot of like these young guys from Surrey, like my man G Kane. He's dope. He's this kid. He's this kid from Surrey, from Guildford. He always reps G Town.
Guildford, G Town.
G Town. We from G Town, baby. And he's one of those young boys I really, really like. I met some of his homies, like EBA and Mobb, that 200 kid. I don't think he's actually from here, but he hangs out there. And just that Fraser 456 guy, 465. Sorry, bro, messed it up. But I met that kid. He's dope too.
Still a plug.
Still the plug. But yeah, so there's a lot of up and comers. I find I've got a lot of long standing relationships. So a lot of the people that I spend the most time with, I've been building with for many years. So it might be some of the more veteran guys that have been at it for a while. You build those relationships, right? And that's where you tend to
But they're quality.
Quality. Well, that's the thing, is you build these relationships with people. Same thing with anything creative. And the goal is basically to be indispensable, right? You got to work yourself and you got to provide value and you got to become an essential part, as any creative, of what you do for your clients, right? So you become really ingrained in their process and what they do, and it's and it goes both ways, right? I mean, so those relationships, when they work, tend to be really long standing because there's a certain level of trust that comes with it, right? You can't just meet up with anyone and be like, make my song sound good and just give them carte blanche to do that. But you should be able to do that if the art is going to flow creatively,
the way
right?
that art should.
Yeah. So it takes a bit of time to get there, but once you get there, you don't really want to mess with that, right?
No, that's really interesting. I know that you said 10 years. When did you start this? When did you get that first call? Like, hey, Jamie, can I get you to, I have this project that is okay. I need you to make it into a real project. When did that start? I
mean, I don't think it started like that. I think it started like most of these things do, was just messing around. Like I remember my one friend back in the day, this was like the early days of the internet and pirating software. He showed me, I think we were in like 9th grade or something, and how you could go on this thing called MIRC and you could download and pirate this software. So he helped me download this program called Acid Pro. And like it was this program that you don't have to. Although some of my friends still use it.
No way.
But yeah. And he showed me to download this program, and it came with these stock loops. And I was like 14. I grew up playing trumpet and drums and stuff like that. So I liked music. But the second I used this program, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I was just using the generic stock loops that came with it and messing with it. And I was instantly stricken. Like the trumpet seemed like boring, basic compared to this. So I started manipulating loops and making beats, and then going upstairs and digging out my mom's record player and finding her old vinyl and
samples right off the bat,
and just sampling some stuff and figuring out how to loop it, and basically just got engrossed with that all through high school. So just making beats for my friends in high school, and
that's sick.
If I could sell them the beat for $50 or something, or $100, that was lit.
That was crazy.
Bro. That was, Wildcat 8-packs in the park for like a long time,
The bag was secured.
You had to secure the bag.
Secure the bag. Major key. First things first.
So it started out as a hobby, but then right away, no one else was doing it. Like back then, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more accessible, which I think is great to get started and get these programs and start making beats. And I think the ease of access now is up the quality so much because everyone can have a shot at it, and from there you get those like you have like a much bigger talent base to draw from because anyone can get started. But back then it wasn't quite as easy, you know. You had to buy expensive software or pirate it, you know.
Back then, when are we talking?
Let's say, I'm going to say like 2001.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So when did LimeWire and all that come out?
That would have been just after.
I think 2003.
2001. I think we're probably still in the Napster era.
Yeah, for sure. That changed things too. I mean, wow. So it's crazy. We came up in the whole that. When was the last time selling records made money?
I was just going to touch on that. So back then when I started, like, you know, I talked to some of the older engineers that I know, and they were just. They've made it clear to me that when I started, this was rock bottom for them. They may have been making records in the 80s and everyone was making money, and records default, you'd be making hundreds of thousands of dollars off your few points. But what I realize now is that when I came into the industry, this was rock bottom. Napster had just killed everything.
2001.
There was no way to make money. Everyone was depressed, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care. I was just wanted to make beats. But in hindsight, yeah, came in at rock bottom. Nothing was happening. All the veteran guys were just totally demoralized, blah, blah, blah. But luckily, I didn't know any better. I didn't care. So I was stoked to make $100.
Yeah, $50 for a beat. That's amazing.
That was crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think in a sense my ignorance was bliss there. But and we can get to this eventually, but what's cool is to come from then to now where the market has evolved a bit and we're starting to find ways. I think it's still in its infancy, but we're finding ways now to monetize stuff again, and streaming is putting those, you know, even if it's $100 here or $1,000 here and there for those entry level or mid-level artists, there's a new revenue stream that didn't ever exist.
But what
and people can pay with their eyes just by listening and streaming or watching your song that's on YouTube that has an ad on it. So I think, yeah, starting at the bottom where just no one was making anything, it's cool to finally see some hope back in the industry.
Right. Well, what do you really make off a stream? I mean,
I think it's about point off like the average. Spotify doesn't pay as much as something like Apple Music or Tidal, which no one uses, so they pay the most to try and lure you there. But
yeah,
I think it's about 0.04 cents off a stream on Spotify right now, USD, which doesn't sound like much. But, you know, that starts adding up when you have a few 100,000 streams.
Right.
You're making hundreds of dollars US.
Yeah, which is a far cry from the 80s and the 90s.
It is.
But it is still something. I mean,
it's something, but I think what you got to remember too is the market has kind of shifted and come to terms with the fact that at least right now the music, the recorded music is not necessarily where you make your money from selling that. That's more of the draw. That's the attention grabber, and that's how you can get people to your show or people to buy your merch. And I think that's where we've ended up. I don't think that makes the music any less important. I still think that the quality music is the most important thing, and you're nowhere without it, I guess, unless you've got a gimmick or whatever. But at the same time, the industry has evolved that you use that music to generate an audience and then find all sorts of different ways to monetize that.
Right. How much do you think social media changes that now?
Everything, because the data is there. Like, you know, you guys do this podcast and you put it out. You can see where the people listen to it, how many people downloaded it,
how long they listen to it
the
for.
demographics, blah, blah, blah. And you can adjust your plan accordingly. You can market in those markets. So can you imagine what the record industry in the 80s would have done with all the data that they have now? So you can really refine and hone your plan. I'm not an expert in that, so I don't want to speak too much on the marketing side. All my clients are like, well, how do I market this? I'm like, geez, I don't know. I'm not an expert. And I don't think anyone truly knows that. A lot of people sell themselves as gurus, but I don't think anyone truly knows. But I think if you're just adaptive and responsive to the market and you use that data wisely, that, you know, the old industry would have killed for.
Well, nobody knows because the social media industry in itself is in its infancy. We can't identify trends. We can't shoot for longevity because we don't know what longevity is, right? So it's like, how do we build a new how do we build a new fan base and a new artist around a social media following that's going to last them 10, 20 years? Right?
Yeah.
We don't know, but we do have the numbers. We can sustain it now. But there's rappers out there that will literally have, I don't know if you listen to Russ. You know that? Russ,
Yes.
yeah. Of course you know, obviously.
Russ, hold this L.
Yes, please. That's hilarious. Jamie's in on Twitter. But he was saying just like a lot of new artists will have those skits and have whatever social media following and posts because those numbers are bigger than their streaming numbers.
Yeah, like those guys that blew up off of Vine. You know what I mean? Like anything goes viral.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. I think the key though is if you get that lightning in the bottle, I would wonder, I'm just thinking out loud here, but I wonder like how do you sustain that? How do you follow up with stuff like that? I think that's kind of the curse where if you look at like, you know, some of the guys who build at grassroots slowly, like if you can accumulate those real fans and you have, you know, 200 real fans that will buy those premium packages that you put out or come to every show or whatever, like, you know, I wonder how you can quantify the value of like 200 diehard fans versus 10,000 fly by night just passing through on Spotify fans or saw your advertisement but kept moving and didn't really get sucked in. So there's that whole debate over like viral, like, you know, spark versus like the slow and steady grassroots, and I wonder where those overlap. And
sure
yeah.
I mean, it's speak to Russ. I mean, some people say it's an industry plan, but I mean, he, regardless of what you say, I remember following his SoundCloud page and like actually waiting on those singles. And he's said before, like, listen, people used to put out albums on Spotify, on SoundCloud, and the only track that would get any plays was the first one. So he's like, why the fuck am I making a whole album? Why don't I just put out singles? Bam, worked like that, right? Worked his way up. Or even like the ascent of J. Cole. I remember even before, I mean, the mixtape hustle and him moving to New York, and that's when I first got wind of him, and it was just like, oh my God, why isn't this guy on? And his rise was so slow, and it seems like he's going to be on the top forever. Like, it seems like his core base is so there, but at the same time, like, no one's putting up numbers like 6ix9ine is right now. I mean, those numbers are crazy. So
on his social media,
sure, but I mean, he's selling out big venues. He was on Summer Jam and stuff like that. Like, those are huge things that we don't feel. I don't feel like there should be internet viral sensation on a stage at Summer Jam or on any festival stage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you know, there is something to be said. Like, you know, I question a lot of what that guy's about, but I think so.
Really?
Yeah. But at the same time, some of those songs, you know, go pretty hard. And then it's the whole debate. Like, I remember, well, first of all, not to get ahead of ourselves, like, you wonder, like, does that guy have to keep up his antics, though, to keep the eyes on him? Like, is his music enough? Has he built people that truly love his music enough? Probably. His music goes hard. Like, you know what I mean? But I would hate to be in a position where I just have to keep talking shit about people on the internet or doing more and more outlandish shit just to keep the public eye, you know? Like, that's a weird position to be in. No,
that's show business now, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, look at Kanye.
Yeah, it's
not saying that Kanye is doing that for that specific reason.
Kanye or Trump or anyone, it's become court the attention at all costs, right? No, there is no bad press anymore.
Right, but I mean, I don't know if you ever read 48 Laws of Power. It's Robert Greene. It's an older book, and that's literally one of the first laws is court attention at all costs. So I think it's something that has been prevalent throughout history, but now it's just so magnified based on the medium that we're working through, which is social media, which everyone has access to, right?
Big time.
Which for me, I think that's why personally I like guys like yourself that go towards the artistry and don't really necessarily like. I'm not seeing you on Instagram saying wild shit. You know what I mean? Like I see you dedicated to your craft and working constantly because it's a passion thing.
Yeah, but that comes more with the role too. Like, you know what I mean? No one really cares if I'm out here talking. We joke all the time if I went on Twitter and started dissing engineers. Yo, your plugins suck, and started talking shit. Like, no one cares about that. Yeah. No one cares about on my side of things, which is more behind the scene. Like, the number one rule is always just let your work speak for you. Like, I've always said, you know, be weary of any creative that's marketing to you or advertising or trying to sell themselves, because I can't tell you that you should come mix a song with me. You should have already heard something that resonates with you and says, I think that aesthetic might fit with my song. But if someone's saying, yo, I'm dope, man, you know what I mean?
Check me out.
If you're just starting out, you have to hustle your shit. No question. But, you know, the product should speak for itself. And I'm not an entertainer. I'm like a behind the scenes guy. I'm happy being behind the scenes. You know what I mean? You lured me out here. I put on jeans just to be, you know, there's camera. I had to put on jeans for this. You know what I mean? I wear sweatpants all day. You got me to put on jeans to come here. But yeah, you know, I like the behind the scenes. I like letting the process speak for itself. I don't envy, like, I've done the DJ thing. I used to DJ back in the day. No way. And I didn't like the spectacle. I didn't like having to be on and do all that. And, I like to just chill and be in my element. So
Right,
yeah,
no.
you're not going to catch me wilding, talking shit on Instagram.
Listen, man, all the more to you. I try to just, I keep those negative thoughts to myself. I'm not trying to go out there and diss people or whatever, but you know what? Producers are actually making a name for themselves now. Like,
Big
you
time.
didn't know, like, Scott Storch is a celebrity, mixed by Ali. Like, these people are big now. Like, it's not
Well,
just...
Scott Storch was famous back in the day. Everyone knew him, but for the wrong reasons. So the amount of
Yeah,
coke he
exactly.
could sniff
You know what
on
I
a
mean?
yacht that was being repossessed while he was...
Yeah, doing that. So, but these people are real names, and maybe that's just because everyone's putting them on now on their socials and stuff like that. But I mean, now more than ever, there's people that were not celebrities that are now celebrities.
You're absolutely right. Let's talk about that for a second. You're absolutely right. The producer in hip hop has become more and more important. And I think the main reason for that is because hip hop has become so much more stylized. Before, you had a dope producer and everyone knew DJ Premier and, he had dope beats, but the guy would just come on and rap, and it was just, it was more about what was being said. But now hip hop music is so much more aesthetically driven. It's more about the sound and the styles. Like, half the time people aren't even listening, and I'm guilty of that myself. Like, sometimes when Kendrick Lamar comes at me and he's saying all this crazy stuff, I'm like, wow, that's crazy, but I just want to vibe right now. So
Right. You just want melody.
I might just sometimes want some melody and just to vibe out, and that's where the producers and even engineers, like you've mentioned Mixed by Ali, these are engineers. Like, we've come so far that people even know who Ali or Alex Toomey or 40 are the people, and
Oh
they
my
comment
gosh,
on
yeah.
the engineering. And maybe people knew Guru and stuff from Jay-Z before because he shouted him out. That was like maybe the only one, but like we've come to a point where the engineering has become so crucial to hip hop music that like it's so cool to see the engineers getting some shine. And I honestly, man, I never thought that we would see that. I would never expected that. I never felt like engineers were especially entitled to that because, you're just playing your role. You're hired to be there to do your job. But that role has become increasingly important in a way that I actually don't think I would have necessarily anticipated.
See, I disagree. Because you can take a shitty rapper and put him with an amazing engineer and amazing producer, and you can get a good product. I don't think you can take an amazing rapper and put him with a shitty engineer, a shitty producer, and it's going to be okay.
Well, just back to the end, like the producer thing, that's a given. The beat was always important, but I think in an earlier age of hip hop, the message was by far the most important thing, and I still think it's extremely important. I want to stress that. But at the same time, with a good engineer, even if you're not saying much, just in the landscape of hip hop that we have now, if it sounds cool and it sounds wavy and it goes hard, I think you can get away with that a lot more. And there is much more of an emphasis on that. So I do agree with you that it was always important, but the producer more so. I think as long as you had a message and a dope beat back in the day, as long as the producer didn't screw it up and made sure your drums were loud and you could hear your voice clear, that was enough.
Can J. Cole bring that back? Bring back the message, bring back the lyricism. Can he bring that back to the forefront?
No, not J. Cole can't do it by himself, but he's part of a movement that is stressing that. I think it's been a great year for that. For the people listening to this in the future, it's 2018. Hip hop, lyricism and hip hop has just come back. But we've seen a lot more stress on lyricism, and I think after a couple years of Migos and Lil Pump and stuff like that, where it was kind of de-emphasized, you still had people like Kendrick and J. Cole who kept it going, but we are seeing a movement back towards that. I don't credit it strictly to J. Cole, but it's the cycle in anything. People get sick of mindless stuff after a while. It's just a cycle.
No, I agree. You're going to have ups and downs. I mean, so it kind of reverted back to, great lyricism for a little while. And then, but before that, everyone hated on the R&B thing. I mean, people hated Nelly.
The shiny suit puffy stuff too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like even I remember Jay-Z getting a little bit of flack for Big Pimpin', like, like it's not him. And I was like, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. But I think it goes in waves. I'm just interested to see the next progression of where it goes. So again, we had a huge R&B just overload with the old school baggy throwback jerseys. I love those, by the way. I finally got to put one on at the Raptors game.
Ness one.
Yeah. and then we kind of went back, and then now we're in this huge mumble rap thing, and we're kind of coming out. Where do you see the progression? Where do you think the movement's going to go towards? Like, I know we're really melody heavy right now. We're not lyric heavy. Where do you see urban music moving in the next 5, say, years?
I don't know. I hope we keep the melody because I think it makes it accessible, and I think that part of that is rap music has become pop music.
That's crazy.
Or pop music has become rap music, I should say. It dominates all the charts, all the metrics. So I think it's natural that as hip hop is now appealing to a more wider audience, it makes sense to get some melody in there, and I think that's a smart move. And I encourage that, and it's fun working with some of my clients who have been rapping, and we've been working together a long time, trying to work with them to introduce some more melody.
Sing the hook.
and they can do it, and it's fun. It's wow, like seeing someone like kind of tap into those new things. But yeah, back to the question, where do I see it going? I have no idea. I think it will continue to grow, and the lyrics will come back, and I hope we keep the melody, but. It's going to become, I hope it keeps getting more and more stylized, because I think rap music sounds cooler than ever. Like, I think like the sound design and everything has gotten so much cooler. It's so much nicer on the ears. You know what I mean? I don't think we need to go back to, I grew up listening to gangster rap, Mobb Deep and everything. And when I listen, I still love it. And I still get that feeling when I listen back to it, but just all like the mindless fabricated
crap.
It was kind of it was all nonsense. You know what I mean?
Nonsense.
It was all. It's like a movies. It was like
hard.
It was hard, and it gave me that feeling. And as a suburban kid, it made me feel tough. I felt so weird. I like that. So hopefully, I like that. I like that empowering feeling. I like more aggressive music. I've never been too into R&B and anything that's too soft. I don't gravitate towards that. So hopefully we can keep some of that edge and aggression.
I love the
with
edge.
some message, but I don't know. It's always going to be evolving. It's just like. Music is like fashion. It TikToks, right?
Right. Yeah.
We went from selling drugs. Everyone's rapping about selling drugs. Now it's about doing drugs.
Yeah.
Now everyone's gonna sober up. It's
It'll be a weird place to go. But did you hear Logic's new album?
I haven't. No.
Man,
I was listening to the Carter 5.
Yeah. That's a discussion. Pause. Hold up. Let me go down this road for 1 second. Logic brought the boom bap back for the Rat Pack, as he says.
Wiggity.
Yeah, literally, riggedy rap, the old Jay-Z stuff before people. Oh man, I remember that like in 1999 when he just had that New York flow, and I actually liked it. But
he had all the Wu-Tang members on it too, didn't he?
Exactly, it was fire. But Logic came back with that style, and I have no idea how it's been received. It just came out, I think, 2 days ago. It'll be out for a couple weeks by the time this podcast drops.
Hopefully, people have had time to digest it by the time this drops. Because I haven't had time. That's a rough day to drop. Everyone's been waiting for this Wheezy album for 4 years plus, and then you drop on the same day.
But I don't think he cares. I think he's doing it for the culture. Did you go deep? Are you a Logic fan?
No.
Have you heard his conceptual albums at all? You haven't dug into him?
I'm not too up on the Logic.
I don't know where I stand on him, to be honest with you, but I love that he pushes things in awkward and weird directions and tries different things. I'm a big fan of that. But he came back with a very heavy drum kit type thing.
I like that.
And it wasn't heavy on the melody. I wasn't a fan of that, but he was really rapping again, which is amazing. And I think it's cool. It's going to push the culture in a certain way. Back to the Carter 5. Thoughts?
Well, I love it, and I think we need to give respect where respect is due. I think Wheezy is the dad and the granddad of a lot of these rappers out today.
Granddad.
He's like birthed the guy that birthed the guy, The whole style, it's like multi-generations of influence.
Birthed the guy that birthed the guy. So put names to it. He kind of birthed...
like let's say Young Thug, right?
Sure,
Young Thug has influenced and propagated this whole mumble rap thing. I guess him or Future would have been the people who really started that. But like... Young Thug, I'll just go on record saying he's kind of a cheap Wayne knockoff to me.
I don't disagree. At all.
I like any of the melodies that make me feel some type of way. But what I got reminded of was hearing Wayne here is, you know what I mean? He's got that crazy flow. He sounds like a little gremlin. He's got the wild voice and stuff. But his bars are A1. He's got one of the nicest pen games of all time. Yeah. A goat with the pen.
Yeah, absolutely.
His wordplay is crazy, and I think that gets lost on some people because he sounds so wild, and people just think he's like this syrup guzzling maniac or whatever. But his pen game is insane. Whereas I think someone like Young Thug, it sounds wavy, but the dude's saying nothing.
Yeah,
and a lot of his music is kind of trash to me. But heavy influence from Wayne. So he's like Wayne light. He's like the wildness of Wayne, but without the substance. Shots fired. Hashtag.
I agree, yeah, he's the zero calorie version. I
guess. Came around a bit too, but you got to understand. I've been at this a long time. So an interesting concept was like I grew up making boom bap hip hop, where it was like the Gang Starr DJ Premier
Yeah.
type Ninth Wonder type beat before there was type beats, 16 bar verse, and then the
Before
hook
there was type
with either
beats.
like the singing chick or the scratches or whatever, and it was very formulaic and very simple. So it was like a big step for me and kind of gradual. I saw people coming in being like, "Oh, can you put some reverb on my voice? I want it to sound wavy," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Wait, what the fuck do you mean? This is rap music,
Yeah.
son." So I had to like
This is rap music, son.
I had to really digest, and I still to this day have to stay conscious. I don't want to be the old dude that gets left behind being like it should be this way. So there was like a period where I had to kind of wrap my head around like the Futures and the Thugs, and kind of wrap my head around that aesthetic, because it's my job to be able to recreate that. And if a client wants to be able to sound like that, so I remember digesting Lil Young Thug for the first time, being like, "What the fuck?
How am I gonna get my
is
mind
this?
around this?" Yeah.
Like I don't. What the fuck is
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
But now, fast forward 5 years later or whatever, I'm with it, and I like some of that stuff. But back to the Lil Wayne thing, like, yeah, he's Lil
Yeah.
Wayne light, budget Lil Wayne.
Yeah, poor man's Little Wayne.
I guess I'm not gonna be getting that rich gang call to mix anymore.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I don't think you want that. Anyways, you're far too.
I'm burning bridges left and right on this self-hired show.
That's it.
My agent's texting me. He says I gotta
Shut up.
Like Elon Musk, I'm not supposed to swear.
No. Yeah, don't swear.
Yeah.
Can I swear? Don't swear. Yeah, don't worry. We haven't passed the blunt around quite yet, but we'll get that meme.
Yeah, totally.
We'll get that meme. I agree, man. My first reaction to the whole mumble rap thing was so negative, and then I started.
That's the knee-jerk reaction.
I was just like, this is because this is corny. I'm a purist. Like, I'm a purist. I came up on like the Chronic, and that was like, I loved deep, heavy, impactful shit. And then G-Funk came out, and G-Funk came out before, but I got onto G-Funk, and it was like, okay,
When you say G-Funk, you mean like Chronic, Doggy Style, and all that kind of
just
stuff?
Warren G, Nate Dogg
Warren
type.
G, yeah.
Like that was really my thing, and I was like, okay, it's okay to have melody in music. And then I tried to take that same, not that Dre stuff wasn't melodic, because there is a lot of melody in there, but it was definitely a different, lighter, softer sound. I was like, okay, that's cool. We can be okay with that as a culture. We can embrace that. And then I tried to take that same approach when it came to Thug, and when it came to Chief Keef, and when it came to these other guys that
Chief Keef, another very underrated as far as influence goes.
Sure.
People don't
I
appreciate.
thought that's where you're gonna go with it. I thought you were gonna say that it was Lil Wayne gave birth to Chief Keef, and then Chief Keef gave birth to give me some names. Pump.
Any of that, just, I mean, that whole drill music thing, and any sort of really aggressive, hyper violent, slurred,
Yeah.
leaned out sounding stuff.
I don't. Oh yeah.
It's interesting that someone from Chicago would be influencing. I guess you can trace a lot of that Southern style from Chicago and drill. They kind of meshed in a sense. That's interesting, actually, to think about.
No, it is. But I mean, yeah, borders have been breaking down. I mean, actually, on that whole east, west, north, south thing, I think it's actually very cool that the South is getting another turn at the helm. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from, the east, going out to the west, and then, when was the last time the South was dominant?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Outcast?
but then you got to remember all like the ringtone rap of like the mid 2000s, all that
goodness.
Little John and
I'm
all
totally sleeping
and
on
all
that.
that
You're
stuff,
right,
like
yeah.
all that, everything from the Little Johns, Little Scrappy, Young Buck, all that stuff. Like I think the South kept it going. It was maybe a bit of a niche thing. I think like that Atlanta sound, that Metro booming sound became like the mainstream, but like the South was always going hard. I mean, I grew up listening to 3-6 Mafia and all that Cash Money
actually love
stuff,
that shit.
and so and then the mid 2000s were dominated by a lot of Southern
Ludacris.
music. So I think it was always going strong, but it was still felt like it was Southern music, where what you're talking about is that Atlanta sound became rap music.
It is music. It's pop. It's pop now.
Basically.
Yeah. No, for sure. Are you a big Crit fan?
Big Crit, a lot of my friends love Big Crit, and like I'll bump it when they come to the studio and we'll listen to it. But I have to say I've never truly dove in. I listened to his last project. What was that, Double Disc?
Yep.
Was that his last project?
No. There's been one since.
That was the last.
Jamie, please.
Yo, young Jamie, pull that up. That was the last full Crit album I digested, and I really liked it. I mean, dude can spit.
Yeah.
He has that classic sound. Like I loved Outkast growing up. Like my
215s, yeah.
I love Big Boy and stuff like that. So I love the essence of all that. But
yeah, I'm not a big fan of the music. I'm not a big fan of the music, but I'm a huge fan of Crit. I mean, like, he came out on that 2011 Freshman cover, and it was like him, Crit, Mac Miller, rest in peace. God damn.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry. Crit, Miller, Kendrick, Cole. There was a bunch of guys, and I think it was maybe Double XL's first Freshman cover. Am I making that up?
Wow, this freshman cover sounds a hell of a lot better than what we've been dealing
we
with
have now.
Wow, that sounds like a utopian paradise.
No, exactly right.
It's like thinking back to George W. Bush now. Wow, that sounds pretty good.
Sci-Hi the Prince, he was on there too.
Sci-Hi the Prince, another lyrical goat, man. He's one of...
Yeah.
When you said bringing back that boom bap, when you're talking about the Logic thing, I thought of that latest Sci-Hi album. It was kind of cool to listen.
No Dope on Sundays? No Dope on Sundays?
No Dope on Sundays.
Yeah.
And it was cool to hear that. There was no 808s. It was like, drum loops, drum breaks,
Yeah.
and like just spinning. And I
was
thought that
dope.
was crazy, really refreshing. So yeah, to bring it back, I hope we see more of that.
I hope we do too, man. I'm a huge Sci-Hi fan. I thought that he was shelved for a while. I have no idea what went on there in the business side, but I wish we saw more of his
Kanye was like,
music.
no, just write my bars.
Yeah, exactly.
Just keep writing my
Yeah.
bars. You can't do nothing else.
Literally.
But you know what's cool? Sci-Hi, I just got to work with Sci-Hi on something.
Oh, no way.
I just did an album for my homie Junk. He's from Vancouver. He's a battle rapper.
Dope.
Also an amazing studio rapper. His albums are incredible. His performances are incredible. But he got Sci-Hi on his latest album, so it was very cool opening up my email and seeing like Sci-Hi lead
Vocals.
dot wave.
Yeah,
feeling like, oh shit.
Hello, let's
so,
go.
So that was a cool one to get to work with.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my one degree of separation to Sci-Hi the Prince, who
Are the Sci-Hi vocals in yet?
yeah, they're
Gotcha.
in. They're in. It's
They're
out. Check
in.
it out. Junk featuring Sci-Hi the Prince, flawless, but it's a great record.
Okay. Is this out? Is this
It's out. It's out
Okay.
right now.
All right, I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna get that one for
That's
sure.
a plug for my boy Junk. He's a good
No,
dude.
absolutely. Please do. We need more good music in the world. So, oh man, I had a moment there.
You were thinking about Mac
Mac
Miller. You
Miller,
almost
man.
started crying. I saw it.
No, man, it's just like that's. Damn. I don't know what to say about that. Mac Miller was crazy because I was a Eminem fan early. Obviously, I'm a white kid from Canada. Of course, I'm an Eminem fan. And then he was the only white rapper. And then just in my mind, the way I had put it was Mac Miller came along and he was young. He had a different sound. He wasn't saying things that were terrible to me. He was rapping about frozen pizza and Donald Trump, and it was cool. And then he went down a crazy artistic, and obviously he had some issues with addiction, and he went down a different path. And it honestly lost me a bit musically there. Watching movies. Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, I mean, I actually like. Well, he did that. The Divine Feminine. Is that what it was? I should know this.
I don't know. I'm not going to be the man
Sure.
for Mac Miller trivia here.
That's
but
okay. But he went down when he did kind of the watching movies with the sound off, and he kind of did a different route for a while that I wasn't into, and I kind of saw him going down a different route, and then he kind of came back and got very jazzy, and like you said, alluded to earlier, started singing on hooks, and Swimming is probably one of my favorite albums this year, undoubtedly. 2009 is an amazing track. I literally cried to that track. I put it on right after I heard the news, and
Jeez.
it was so beautiful, and I'm so sad to see him go. 26.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I've
It's
lost for
crazy.
words.
It's crazy. Yeah, he was. I mean, it's always cool to see like a young dude saying something cool and a young white guy. You know what I mean? It's not always easy being a white rapper in the industry because I think it's a touchy subject. I don't even know how to touch on it. But even me, like when you see a white rapper step up, I kind of have this. Okay, let's see what this is about. I don't know why that is. I don't know what it is. But yeah, he was able to just kind of make that his own and kind of find his own lane and. Yeah, so I really thought he was creative musically, and Fisherman Larry, he made his own beats, which
It was
I always
dope.
respect. It's always, I remember learning that later on and actually realizing how good of a producer he was.
Absolutely, sonically, he's amazing. Yes,
Awesome.
please, yes.
But that was so sad too, man. Like I remember going to his Instagram the night he died, and you saw that sad.
It was still there.
That sad record. He posted the night Mac Miller died. He posted this. You could go to his story, and he was just filming in this dimly lit room. It was this record player playing this really sad song on vinyl, and it was like that was kind of like his ending credits music. I'm getting chills thinking about it. I remember going to that and being like, holy shit, that was too real.
I know. I
Like,
went. Yeah.
what was going through his mind there? Do you think he knew it was coming?
I don't know. I truly think that it was just a bad batch.
Do you think
I
that's what it was?
Just a bad batch, man. I think obviously he alluded. I don't keep a big pulse on everything going on, but I think that he alluded a little bit like, man, I just want to go on tour right now. Album's doing really well. I'm making amazing music.
So he didn't seem like a guy who was like ready to end it all.
I don't think he was there. I think it was just a bad night, you know, and like we all have bad nights, and I think it was a bad batch. And it was so spooky because I remember seeing the news. First off, for some reason, everyone thinks I am a big Mac Miller fan, but my phone blew up off of that, like right as TMZ dropped the news. And I was like, wait, what? Why are you guys texting me? The type thing. But I was like, and it's the first person for me that like, I really feel like I watched the entire journey of it as a fan of music. And we like from start to finish, we actually lost them. And so it was just like, it hit me in a place where I had never been hit by celebrities, because a lot of these celebrities we've lost, or these artists that we've lost, they've started their ascent from before I was really into music and keeping a good pulse on it. And it was like, I haven't seen their whole journey.
Or maybe you didn't follow from the start or whatever. There's not many artists that you really follow closely enough to really see the whole arc of what they're doing. That's like a full-time job.
And it was like, that's the end. But just to go back to what you were saying, it was like, how spooky was that? You put it perfectly. It was like his ending credits.
That was really crazy. I saw someone post that, go look at his story, and I went, it was still there, and it's just like, and it's crazy that it expires in 24 hours, and like, you know, you feel like, okay, I saw that while it was still there and still live. It was kind of like this weird moment that you could see again, a strange moment that wouldn't have existed 5-10 years ago.
What was
that's kind of trippy, right?
Point. That's a great point.
What would be the equivalent of that? There's, you know what I mean, a voicemail that got left for you or something that's way more personal. I guess there's nothing, you can't compare it.
The only thing that goes in my mind is that infamous picture of Pac and Suge
Suge's in jail.
Suge Knight,
you're done, bud.
He's done. Him and Knight in the whip.
Yeah, that's an iconic photo.
That's an iconic photo. That's right before he got shot.
Similar.
To me, that's the only equivalent. But it's not even.
It's not even that. It is, and it's the same feeling. But it's crazy because with this one, like, it's something that Mac Miller actively posted. It was a moment that he experienced and chose to share.
He chose to share.
Weird. That's the only weird thing about it. It was so somber and melancholy. Maybe he was just really high and like. But I don't know. It's you can really read into that if you want to. Yeah. But I think you're probably right. There's probably nothing there. But nonetheless, it was a very interesting moment.
Yeah, it's a sad moment for hip hop. Sad moment all around.
But it just speaks to the bigger issue. I mean, I don't want to just keep rehashing these social issues that get talked about all the time here in Vancouver. But the opioid crisis is crazy, man. It's real. When you think of all those like. Just all those innocent people that are at risk. Maybe you party once or twice a year, or your friend's partying and you want to try it or whatever. And it's just like, it went from that being just, you know, not the wisest decision you could make to like a potentially fatal decision.
That could kill
you. So crazy. Like,
yeah, no, I know.
What they say, like 1,000, we've already had like over 1,000 overdose deaths.
I think it's
this year?
I think it's, the number is quite, I think it's around 2,000. I want to say now.
I think last year was 3,000 and something total. Like, that's madness.
It's very large.
It's madness. What do you even do about that? I don't know. I mean, this is not like a, you know, a social issues podcast. It's just, it raises an interesting question. Then you just see how it's affecting everybody. Like, you don't associate Mac Miller with being like a junkie drug addict.
No.
That's at risk of overdosing.
No, you identify him as an amazing artist, but honestly, all the coolest people are kind of fucked up.
Well, you know what we have to do then if we want to be cool.
Young Jamie, bring it in.
Yo, Jamie, pull that off.
No, for sure, man. No,
it's not a joke. I shouldn't joke about it. It's really serious because it's got to the point where it's affecting not even people who have made a series of bad decisions.
Yeah,
it's affecting. One bad decision can cost you it all, and that just seems really unfair.
I think it's just to me these issues happen throughout society, throughout history. To me, I just don't feel comfortable with the way that it's being presented and glorified through our culture.
That's the thing. Like, are we moving away from that now? Like, you know,
I don't know.
I would hope so. One thing I didn't realize as a kid was people would say, "Oh, rap music is influencing the youth," and as like a teenager, fuck out of here. It's not influencing shit, but it is. And I realize now as an adult how much it influenced me. I would listen to it if I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna fight this guy," like listening to Mobb Deep and just feeling tough, or like, party and like objectifying women and stuff. Like, it does have an effect, and it's just crazy to see. Like, when I work with like some of these young dudes, and I see guys that are 19 and 20, and I'm just hearing about, they're telling stories of how they're partying, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
We didn't party like that.
No.
And it's become so normalized. And now these kids are out here hearing about people drinking lean, so they're in Vancouver drinking fake lean that's just Xanax and fentanyl or something. Who the hell knows? It's like, it's crazy to think as an adult that rap music actually does have that effect on people.
100%.
I would have never wanted to admit that to you as a younger dude, but now I fully acknowledge that.
Oh man, it's young brains are so malleable. And
well, it speaks to you so much. I would have never given it that much credit before. And it, on the surface, well, it's just lyrics, but man, it's like it's almost like a lifestyle. Like, you want to be like that person, you want to dress like that person, you want to talk and act and move like that person. So it's so much more than just the lyrics, it's the whole lifestyle. But I would have, as a young person, I would have never given it that credit and that weight. But as time goes on and I've had the ability to self-reflect and also to watch what's going on with younger people, I fully think that rap music has an effect on young people. Maybe it's probably still having an effect on me.
Oh no, 100% it is. I mean, we could stand above this and say, "Oh no, I'm impenetrable." No,
yeah,
of course,
it's still having an
not.
effect on me, I'm sure.
It's the amount of empowerment that it gives me to this day has given me. I mean, talk about confidence, man. Like, I was a ball player for a long time, and it was just like, that was it. That pregame music was quintessential. It was everything. Like, you had those 3, 4, 5, 10 tracks laid out.
When you
like,
you just
boom,
put
boom.
on a loop, you put "Hit 'Em High" off the Space Jam soundtrack, and you just loop that, and then you went to play fucking basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You had whatever your tracks was, man. For me, it was, what was it? It was the Watcher off the Chronic 2001.
Yeah.
That was
still one of the best mixed hip hop albums of all time. A lot of music doesn't age, like the styles change, but man, Chronic
to this
2001,
day.
that's still a Bible for me when it comes to a clean mix with loud, punchy drums. The Chronic 2001 is still a Bible, which I can't say about much music, period, from that age. Music has changed a lot, but that one, from an engineering and production standpoint, really stands the test of time.
I have this weird nostalgic thing with that album, so my opinion is totally invalid. To me, that's like the top 3 albums of all time, top 2 albums of all time.
I would say it's definitely in my top 3.
Yeah. What is your top 3?
In fact, I might go as far to say, if I had to pick, these lists are stupid because they change it, or depending how you feel.
Yeah,
but
sure.
so it's good to zoom out a bit and maybe make it 3 or 5.
Sure.
And that'll evolve on your mood, evolve based on your mood. But if I had to pick a single number 1, I might actually pick Dr. Dre Chronic 2001.
Wow. If you were to say your top-ish list, anywhere from 10 to 5 to whatever.
I think you got to put Dr. Dre Chronic 2001, Bone Thugs and Harmony, East 1999, Eternal. I think you got to put Nas Illmatic, or It Was Written. I think you got to put Mobb Deep, Hell on Earth, and that's a controversial opinion, because for any Mobb Deep fans, it's kind of sacrilegious to say it's not the infamous. But I think just over time, I've realized that actually Hell on Earth was the Mobb Deep record that connected more with me, which is so menacing and more influential on me. So I'm going to say Hell on Earth. What else? Maybe Wu-Tang. Not 36 Chambers, which I loved, but I think for listenability now, I've got to say probably Wu-Tang Forever. Love Wu-Tang Forever.
Okay, no, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm with it. I don't think there's a wrong answer there.
Are you calling my ansers wrong now?
No.
She's like, Wu-Tang Forever, sure.
I was like,
the fuck out of here.
Whatever. You corny, bro.
Yeah, totally. But it's hard to say.
Is there anything post
2000? Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Thank you.
I think that's probably the best rap album of the last 10 years. Is that within 10 years?
Wow. 2009? Yeah, that's within 10 years.
Yeah. I'm going to say that's probably the best rap album of the modern era for me. I think it was just so musical. You know what I mean? It was progressive.
It was beautiful.
It was very musical. Yeah, so I would put that in my top.
Sure.
For sure.
What do you think about Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly?
That
I know we're nerding right now, but I got to nerd.
That I listened to it. I don't know. It's a weird. I don't know what it is about Kendrick, but it doesn't connect with me like it does for most people. I wouldn't. Kendrick is not in the top anything list of my rappers, which is
Wow.
weird because I respect I'm in awe of his technical skill. I'm in awe of the engineering that goes into his albums and the production. I love it all, but for some reason it just has never fully connected with me because it doesn't give me, the message is very powerful, but for some reason I don't get that same bass feeling
Feel it
from
in your
it.
bones
I
type thing.
Kendrick's music has never done that for me.
Wow.
I don't know why.
To me, this is controversial. I'm a huge Kendrick fan. The only Kendrick project that really did it for me, to me, To Pimp a Butterfly, excuse me, is like a Mona Lisa of hip hop. It's a fucking piece of art. Sonically, it's very good, but I don't jive with it. Like, again, it's very good, but it doesn't hit me here. To me, Section 80 is the pinnacle of
That's
Kendrick
the first
Lamar
thing I
music.
heard from Kendrick. I think that's the first thing most of us heard from Kendrick,
And
right?
it was still to this day. You want to hear my top 5 Kendrick tracks? They're all on Section 80, and I don't know. That was just a moment in time. So actually, you said that earlier in social media aspects. How do you bundle that lightning? How do you put that lightning in a bottle? I think that's a great example of it. The other artists, I think that maybe they can never recreate this, and I don't want to put them down, but is Bryson Tiller. Trap Soul. Did you listen to that at all?
Loved it. Funny enough, my favorite song on there was Rambo, the least R&B song. But yeah,
Of course it was. That song went hard. That's on my gym playlist. I like it. That to me is absolutely lightning in a bottle. And he came up with his follow-up, which I can't even remember the name of it. But
enough said.
It was. I should be able to remember the name, but it was good, but it just wasn't the same.
Someone made a funny comment about his next album. It sounds like Bryson Tiller, to make his next album, went on YouTube and YouTubed a bunch of Bryson Tiller trap soul type beats and then put together an album. But that trap soul album was really influential. I talked before about having to like keep your ear on the pulse as like a producer, an engineer, or an artist. That was one of those albums that stands out as one of those ones that you had to really pay attention to. Okay, if you're going to be making, crossover R&B rap type music, that was one you really had to listen to, because I think that was a real cultural thing. I think it was marked a real shift or landmark in that.
That was it. That was the pivot. That was the pivot.
In that style, it was, kind of like when The Weeknd came out, he changed what R&B sounded like. It went from this glossy, shiny thing to really moody, atmospheric, distorted, fucked up.
That's a great
brooding
point.
and stuff. Like The Weeknd changed the face of R&B music. I won't give that same weight to what Bryson Tiller did, but it still was one of those key projects where you pay attention because that's going to have an impact on the way the music people will be making is going to sound for the next couple years.
No, I completely agree. I think that it was absolutely pivotal, and I don't know how that moment happened. I'd be so curious to know how did that manifest itself into what it came out. Like, I bought that CD. That Trap Soul is the last CD I bought.
Wow. The end of an era.
End of an era. And it's been in my car ever since. I will not take it off.
Great project.
It doesn't matter if my girlfriend's in the car, my homie's in the car, my parents in the car. If my mom's in the car, I will literally put a more melodic track on, and she'll rock with it too. So I mean, yeah, those are pivotal. What are your thoughts on MAGA and Kanye's new antics? Not just antics, as I want to go the clickbait route, but more sonically.
You won't believe what Self-Hired and Company said next about Kanye West. Yeah. I think I've thought about this a bit, and I've been having.
We're gonna use that sound bit.
I was talking about this before I got here, and I honestly think we're looking at someone who has severe mental health problems. I think it's a weird position to be in. I think he's bipolar or manic or something. I don't know a whole lot about those conditions, but from people who I've talked about who experience and suffer from the same things, they say they see it in him. Yeah. But the weird part is that I don't think Kanye is in a position to be able to deal with it, because if you're going through it's a weird position to be in. If you're in a position where you experience a mental illness that gives you whatever delusions of grandeur, but you actually are this grand, influential, cultural figure with a voice, a platform, who has changed society, culture, blah blah blah. Like, whoa! Like, how do you navigate that? How do you draw the line? Because you're having all these crazy thoughts, but you actually, in many ways, you are that grand, and what you say does matter, and a lot of your ideas are super progressive. Now, but
asterisks,
but not all of them.
Yes,
and
I agree.
I think he's struggling. I don't know. I don't know a lot about it. I don't want to be my armchair psychiatrist, but I see someone who is troubled. Like, I don't think, we talked about it's court attention at all costs, but sadly, I think this goes a little further than that. I think
for sure.
He's really struggling, and it turns the media on him. But didn't he got booed off? For people listening, he got booed off or not booed off, but he was booed on his Saturday Night Live performance last night, right?
Yeah, no, that is true. I mean,
was that just for attention, or is like he actually really feeling that type of way?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Seems like he's struggling.
Listen, man, what he says and how he defends that against the "Make America Great Again" hat is, just because I'm black doesn't mean that I have to be a left-leaning type person. I can be on any end of the spectrum. And
but it's not about left or right. It's about what that stands for beyond the political spectrum, because someone else will come back and say maybe that hat represents separating kids from their families,
or
and caging them at
racism,
you know
or
what I mean? So
sexism, or
it's not
fucking
about
terrible
that's
things.
The thing. We create this false dichotomy where it's left or right or whatever. But like, to me, someone looking from somewhat the outside, like, just
Canada.
it just stands for fucked up shit.
I agree. No, I completely agree. I listen, I agree with the sentiment of like, you know what, hey, we don't have to be this way. We can be whatever way we want.
And I like that Kanye, it feels
cool.
like he can speak his mind, and feels like he doesn't have to be another liberal artist, and he can have those views, and I respect that. But it's naive to think that that's what that hat represents.
It's childish, in my opinion.
So does he wear it for attention, or does he really have this vision where he thinks that he's making this grand statement that's going to enlighten people? I would just argue there's other ways to do that, because that hat stands for so much bad stuff to me.
I completely agree, and I also think that Kanye is intelligent enough to find those other ways to make that statement.
Think?
So that's where I think
so.
The
But where's it
mental
coming?
health, I think that's where the mental health comes in.
I don't hope it's mental health, but like,
yeah,
I hope he's just confused, because it would be messed up if he stood for some of that.
It's true, but then you also have to look at the position that he's in and the position that society has put him in. I mean, like the Kardashians are now the Joneses, right? I mean, they're the pinnacle of culture in every way. I mean, Kim Kardashian has completely single-handedly changed what beautiful means.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean? And Kanye has, regardless of what people say of him now, he changed the face of urban music, in my opinion. Like he's
reinvented it a couple times.
Not just once, a couple of times. And so to put those two together, and then the way they've been scrutinized, and they're it's just
in
such
this
a
TMZ
weird
era, where
exactly.
they're the perfect TMZ fodder.
100%.
Like that's why that format was created.
I guarantee that TMZ has a camera on that fucking guy at all times.
To catch anything. The bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
It's all about clicks.
Yeah.
But I honestly think, like you said, Kanye West is smart, and just because you're going through mentally unstable times, like, I don't think he's so out there that he doesn't know to some degree. Like, I think he does. There is that part of him that he wants to create that controversy, but I just don't think that he's either not realizing or not respecting what that might represent to other people.
But I don't think he's so far gone in that he, again, like you just said, just to reiterate, he doesn't realize those sentiments. Like, he did go on Chicago radio and say and apologize in a sense. And I don't know. I wasn't hurt by it, obviously, because I'm not a African American in America, but I felt as if that was sincere. Not that it was talking to me, but so I think he's not totally disconnected. There's a spot there where he does kind of, he is in this, want to say it, genius, psychotic, totally
very rich
environment, but he also can pivot back and see, okay, wait, let's contextualize this a little bit. I do think that's within his realm. So,
yeah, but it's just surprising that he would go a route that just causes such initial backlash, and then if you want to display more empathy later, fine, but then that kind of shows like a bit of malintent, just purposeful controversy. I don't know. I'm not going to judge from my high horse. Like, that's just kind of what, like we said, what media has become, for better for worse. If he's just playing the game, he's just playing the game. But I could see why that would offend some people.
I completely understand. But you know who called this? J. Cole. False prophets.
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago now, 2 years ago now, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was literally, and I was so like hurt. I was so hurt by that because I'm a huge Kanye fan. Like, honestly, like, college dropout, late registration, dark twisted fantasy. I even liked Yeezus, and no one likes Yeezus. It was okay. And I'm a huge Cole fan, so I was like, what? This is like the two. It just broke me up inside, and so I was so mad. But he did call that. He did see that coming a little bit, and the end line where he was like, while the world's cheering him on, I'm begging him to stop it. Listen to his new shit or listen to his old shit knowing he won't top it. And it was like, oh my God, he's so right. Here we are 2-3 years down the line. That's exactly where he's at. But he is highly experimental, and I do respect that. You're also highly experimental. So you must have, Kanye must have been an influence for you in how you look at artists, no?
I think Kanye West is a big influence on all of us, and also Kanye West engineer Mike Dean, who I have to shout out. He's been making music since the 1991 or something. He was started out as a Rap-A-Lot guy working with like Ghetto Boys and stuff back in the day. So
shout out Rap-A-Lot, yes.
Yeah. So, but what I find interesting about Kanye's music is it's at least where it's at now, it's not about the perfection, it's more about the artistry, and I think that's from an engineering perspective, where that's the frame I'm going to view it from in a lot of ways. His music is more about being creative and less about the rules or perfection or whatever. And, you know, for us on the technical side, it's kind of, that's not as simple as an idea to embrace as you think, because, you know, you get trained and you learn what the tools do and you learn that you're supposed to use them within these parameters and blah, blah, blah. But that kind of like pigeonholes you. And I think one thing that's cool about Kanye's music, and also with a lot of these young, 16-year-old producers that have no classic training, is they just do stuff that sounds cool and they don't necessarily have a box that they put themselves in. So I would say that Kanye West and Mike Dean are very influential on me and other engineers, because listening to his music is a reminder that it's more about the feeling that you get from the music or the experience that you take people on, the ride that you take them on, than it is about making sure that that one little knob twist that you do is the right move,
Right. Well, I mean, how many listeners actually realize what classical training is and can recognize it? You know what I mean?
Classical skills, those fundamental skills are there. You need them there, or it's going to sound fucked up. It's not going to sound pro. Mm-hmm. But the key is just not getting too caught up in that. So it is a balance. You know what I mean? You can't just set some wild guy free and tell him to record and mix and master an album just because he makes dope, Pierre Bourne type beats.
Right.
That's not going to work either. You do have to have like a marriage of like the technical skill and also the ability to kind of let that go and just mess around. And I think over the past 5 years or so, that's something I've really worked on, just, especially as rap music gets more creative. I've had to like really take a look at myself and be like, you can't just color within the lines. And a lot of these young producers who have no training, have influenced guys like me who are formally trained, just be like, okay, you can distort that so it sounds totally blown out and crazy, or you can put like a flanger on that vocal and make it sound trippy. Like that would have been like, you would
totally outlandish.
Dude, when I first started, if I was like doing like Travis Scott sounding vocals with big flanger and reverb, like you'd be fired.
Yeah, you'd be
like,
done.
what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But now people are coloring outside the lines, and that's led us to like much cooler music. I love it. But like I referenced before, you have to stay in tune with that, and you will get left behind. I know, lots of engineers, they're still, stuck. I'm not speaking on anyone in particular, but if you're stuck just making that same, boom bap style engineering style, it's not enough.
Yeah,
it's not enough anymore. And it's not a passive process to kind of stay up to date with that. It's an active process. You have to be actively listening, embracing things. It may not have to be your favorite thing, but you have to wrap your head around it. Like we talked about, all the wavy rap. But back to Kanye West, I think if you're looking for that inspiration, go listen to his music or just that sphere of music, Travis Scott, Astroworld, it's all the same family. It's, Mike Dean engineering that stuff, and just listen to something like that. If you're feeling kind of stale with your production, your engineering, listen to that. They don't care. They're just putting crazy echo on shit and it's just distorted and, sometimes for better or for worse, but I'll take that entertaining imperfection over something that's clinically perfect. I do like that clean sound too. The more clinically perfect sound might be Drake, really refined, clean sound. That's what works for him too.
Okay, sure. But I gotta interject here. Hold up. When 40 took the entire high end and just let Drake's vocals operate in the high end and then put everything else in the low end.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was revolutionary.
That is revolutionary. Absolutely.
Right?
That was revolutionary. I mean, yeah, totally. You take that for granted now.
Yeah.
And there's a few artists that you can kind of attribute that to. Like a lot of people will say maybe someone like James Blake
Wow.
might have been one of the
I
first.
never put the dots together.
Might be one of the first people to do that. Really stripped down, just a really sparse pad sound, atmospheric sound with an 808 and just a voice with reverb. Or in the pop world, like I don't know if this is before that, but like a Lana Del Rey. Like you hear that in other genres.
Man, yeah.
But I definitely 40 was the person to that underwater kind of murky sound.
Oh, I loved
Huge
it,
influence
man.
on me. I still do that. Yes, direct derivative of that sound, and what became the Toronto sound. Let's bring it back to you're talking about. It was really cool to see Atlanta kind of
Have its moment.
come into their own. But what's really cool is to see Toronto as a Canadian. You know, if someone asked you before where you from, if you were networking down in LA, you'd be like, I'm from Canada.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You kind of
Yeah.
just, oh, Canada, oh, igloos and shit.
You
It's
leave your polar bear at the border?
Exactly. You literally heard that. But it's so cool that, in a sense, Toronto kind of has moved into almost like an Atlanta 2.0 position where they created that sound. And it wasn't just Drake. It was producers like Boy Wonder and
Roy
Murder
Woods
Beats and all that
yeah.
stuff. Like, was Murder Beats from Toronto?
I
shouldn't
don't know.
make fake
I'm
news.
not sure on that
He is,
one.
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Just as a Canadian, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And we went through a couple years there where Canadians dominated from Weeknd, Bieber, Drake.
Oh my God, yeah,
biggest
Bieber.
artists in the world. Like, don't count out Bieber. He's that guy sold records. Really talented guy. But
Yeah.
regardless, we won't even get into that. But
Yeah.
Toronto kind of evolving and stepping up and being a cultural hotspot for music.
And dude, it still is. I was just.
It still
is. I had never been to Toronto. I was blessed enough to have the opportunity to play in the Red Bull 3-on-3 national finals, and literally, that city. I feel like Drake is to Toronto what LeBron is to Cleveland or
Yeah, he's like
Akron, Ohio.
well, they did this study where they measured the economic impact Drake had
What?
on
Oh,
Toronto,
really?
where it was like, I forget the things, but you know, the effect that he's had on the Raptors and just with
Yeah.
the music industry and concerts and the taxes he pays and whatever. And it was like in billions of dollars, his economic, or hundreds of millions. They
real.
commissioned a study.
It's real. No, it's
So he's
real.
totally the LeBron.
So when is Vancouver gonna get
Well,
their
I
moment?
have to wonder, like, and this is something that obviously comes up a lot at work and just talking with clients, and we have to wonder. It's just like, you know, when the real estate prices go up in Vancouver, they also go up in Burnaby. Like, I wonder when that spillover effect will happen. But we also have to respect and not take for granted that it's just going to get to that point. Like, are we producing enough consistent quality, quality that warrants that world stage? And I think we do create some, but I think as content creators out here and as artists, we have to push ourselves. And if we are going to embrace that spotlight that we maybe have better access to, that we have to be ready to step up to the plate with the quality content
Right.
to deserve it, to warrant it. And that's easier said than done.
Well, that's really hard. I mean, regardless on however many tiers, on the most underground to the top, The Weeknd, Bieber, Drake, there's quality music throughout it. And the underground is feeding the mainstream and is feeding the top.
You just need something. You need like a catalyst. You know what I mean? You need
Right.
a Drake or a Weeknd, and you need a bit of unity too. Like, one thing I think I saw this Questlove interview where he talked about how when the Roots first started, they didn't understand why they weren't blowing up like they thought they would. They were getting some success, but like they knew their music was really innovative and revolutionary, but they didn't know why it wasn't kind of catching fire. And he said that what he figured out was that they were just a lone kind of entity, and they needed to click up, as he described it. So they needed to surround themselves with guys like Talib Kweli, or you know what I mean,
slept on. Jesus.
and Common and other acts, and kind of build a crew to create this kind of
Movement.
this group momentum. And I won't try and like interpret that. He says it so much more eloquently, but it really resonated with me that they realized that they needed to build something bigger than just them and just feed off that collective momentum and build each other up. And the one universal thing that if you talk to any artist or rapper out here, is everyone definitely feels like that's lacking out here. I think it's definitely getting better. But I think we have a ways to go. So, you know, someone like me who kind of watches kind of with like a bird's eye view, because I work with so many different people out here, and maybe should play a bigger role in that. I wonder how I could contribute. But
It's a good question.
It's a good question. But yeah, just kind of building a bit more of a group
congruity,
group momentum out here instead of every man for himself. Again, easier said than done, and it's a lot easier when you have something to build around. Like if someone does take off and starts helping building up people around them, that's obviously like the starting point when you can look at some other event that's taken place. That's kind of what you see, but we've kind of got to even look even further back and see how we can be in a position to lift someone into that position.
No, I completely agree, and us as a city need to come together. The two most successful in my mind when I think about successful, maybe on the urban side, I think of early on, I think of Swollen members,
Rascals,
and what they were able to do, and then now I think of SDK and FN.
I think that Snack and Merc are the two guys that are the most that have
propelled.
They've built the best thing because they subscribe to just what Questlove was talking about. They built a movement. They built a culture. It's surrounded not around only music, but art and clothing, and they created a whole thing. And that's totally analogous, and that's totally why it works. Their music may not be the cup of tea for everyone, you know what I mean? But they've created such connections with diehard fans, and they've made such genuine, honest music that gives people that feeling. I talked about that feeling. Well, I think their music gives people that feeling and makes them feel that rush,
I agree.
They may connect to the struggles or the what I mean. It's very relatable for a lot of people. And so on top of having a movement, they made real connections with people.
I agree, and I think they totally spoke to what Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island, the interior is, and they took that culture and ran with it, even if that culture is kind of ugly. You know what I mean? Like, maybe ugly is the wrong word, but it's harder. Yes, Surrey's not a great place at times. Yes, let's embrace that. Let's move forward with that. I mean, I love Merc as the poster boy for that, even though he is, again, people have kind of helped him all along the road. Snack came through before, and Evil and all those guys. But I love that. I love that Merc has the face scar, and I love that he is so undeniably raw and so undeniably
story.
him.
It's crazy.
It's beautiful, and especially I had a moment of like, yes, I love it when he came through with Cole. And which again, it was all you.
No, that wasn't all me actually. Well, I did 5 songs on there.
Sure.
And the rest of it was done by another great engineer named NATO. He's also very dope. They have
DJ
a good
NATO in Edmonton.
Yeah, they've got a great relationship. So I don't want to take credit for what he does. He's also a great engineer. So he killed it on that.
Shout out to NATO for sure. But I mean, still, with you had a large hand in it, no doubt.
Yeah.
But the way that he kind of did a full circle there. I mean, when he did, I think it was off Trust Your Gut when he did Gone Die with Stevie Ross. I was like, I hope he's gonna go down this path, and he did.
Yeah, he's really going down that path.
Very introspective.
Like we talked about the mental health issues, and it's funny when we make this music. Like when for example, the songs that I did with Merc or Snack, it's crazy to go on social media and then just after the songs come out, you're working on it, you're like, oh, this is crazy, it's really meaningful, but it's a project, and it's just like it's
a client.
It's no, not necessarily that, but for both of us, we're just trying to get the song done and create good music. But I think sometimes you forget just how much I do anyways, just how much these songs can connect with people. And if someone's just feeling some type of way on a certain day and they put on a song like Moment or Gonna Die or something, and they just feel, holy, this is me. Or Snack has this song that we did on his last album called Ashes. It was about losing his father. And when you go and read the comments on Instagram or YouTube, it's just like, holy crap. So it's a good reminder just to not take for granted the connections that you can and will make with people if you create genuine music. And you always know that, but it's just, there's something about going and seeing the actual reactions.
Yeah.
And sometimes you underestimate the impact that it might have.
Yeah, no, I mean,
because it feels so personal. Like you make it, and you're like, okay, this is my experience, and they're writing songs. That's their world, that's their experience, their feeling. But you get to share those feelings, not to be so whimsical, but it's crazy to see those connections that those songs can make.
And that's where it's truly art. It's art in its purest form. You're evoking emotions in other people, and you're moving forward. And again, that is what brings in collective culture, in my opinion. It's like that is how, if we really actually touch people on real subjects, that's how we bring them together. That's how we unite them. That's how we bring culture to a city that is lacking it. And I think that the way that he was vulnerable is super admirable. And because it's SDK, it's Stomp Down Killers.
SDK.
You know what I mean? Like,
and those guys have been at it for a long time. Like, how satisfying is it to watch if you've been watching for a while? Like, I've known Ryan and the Effin and SDK guys for, I don't know, almost 15 years. And just when they started out with their rather humble beginnings, just making clothes and stuff.
And
but I got to shout out,
whatever,
yeah, but I honestly got to shout out Ryan, who's, he stepped into a kind of a management role for Merck, and he does the Effin thing. But I've got to say, I've watched that guy for the last 15 years bring kids that couldn't afford studio time. He would bring them to my studio and pay for a session just for them to get in the studio and get that experience. He would give them clothes. He would give them a platform. People like Merck or even Snack, built their own things, no question, but it all starts with support of people like Ryan, giving them a chance and helping build something around that and being a part of something. So someone like Ryan, we need more people like that guy who he not only was about it, he put his money where his mouth is and invested with nothing to gain and just
no
furthering,
ROI.
giving people a chance and just kind of building up. For him, it was building up Surrey and giving Surrey artists a chance. And to see it where it is now, it took a while. You know what I mean? That guy's been hustling that effing thing and the SDK thing, which was also, it's not just him, but that guy's been pushing for that for since some of these kids that are listening to this music were not even born. You know what I mean? He's been pushing that for a long time, and to finally see it paying off at a level which I think he definitely deserves, and the whole crew definitely deserves. I gotta say, it's satisfying.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. We need more people like that in not just music, in every culture. Selfless people. It's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it, and to
Totally.
take the ego and all that out of it.
But is that what we need? Just back to the original discussion. Is that what we need more of to kind of build up our culture out here to a little bit more of a viable ecosystem?
Sure. If the answer to that question is yes, then it will take another 10 years. It will take another decade. It will take another 15 years because, again, they need to mature. What if, we thought, Mad Child and Swollen brought it to the scene. I remember when I honestly thought that in 2008 when Get 'Em was on Much Music, Confidential, I don't even know. I think Stevie Ross was Subway back then. I don't know. That was on Much Music, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening now. These artists are no, listen, it's gonna take another 10 years and we're still not even there. Right? So it's if that is true, if that is the answer, we do need more people to usher in and be selfless and play the father, the grandfather role. It's gonna take another 10 years.
I guess it's kind of a cop out to I don't want to put it all on that too, though, because it is about the art. And I do think that the art out here, there's always been good art, but I think as a general whole, it is the bar is being raised. You know what I mean? I think it's evolving. I think if you go back 10 years and just look at all the urban music that was being made out here, with just a bunch of people rapping about, backpack rap, which is cool, but it's also cool to see how it's evolved. And I think a lot of the music that I see coming through my studio and seeing other people make out here is starting to become a lot more commercially viable. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say it's happening yet, but I see the potential of a bit more of a sound to develop out here, because right now, it's very derivative of Toronto or
Absolutely.
or Atlanta or whatever, just as it is in any non-solidified market with the same things that they face in any market. But I do see a potential, just with who's working right now and the innovative steps that they're taking. I do see the potential for also a sound to form out here.
Who do you feel are the leaders of that sound? However young it may be.
I think a couple of the most original people out here right now who I think are the most commercially viable. The first is one guy. I'll plug my own guy first. My homie Seth K, aka he's going by Side now, but I think he makes very commercially viable music. And I think the other one who I don't know very well, but I chat with them a bit, is the Manila Grey guys. I think that their music is very commercially viable. And I think they both have a kind of a cool, dark, atmospheric, glossy sound that you can hear the influence in it, but from certain things. But at the same time, I feel it's original.
I feel like they added the rain. You know what I mean? They added the Seattle, the Vancouver, the clouds. You know what I mean?
Like that. I never thought of it that way.
When I'm you don't know this, but I'm a big Seth K fan.
I'm a huge fan too.
I'm baffled of where he's at now. I have no idea. I have no connection with Seth K at all. And I only look at it from a fan. To me, it makes no sense that he is not on a higher platform.
I feel the same way.
And I feel he's incredibly slept on. Seth, I'd love to have you on this podcast, man. We gotta get you on.
We'll line it up.
Anyways, when he put out See You in LA in 2014, 15 or whatever it was, I truly felt that was progressive of music as a whole, not even as Vancouver.
Wow.
Like, honestly, it was,
man.
It was a different sound. And it was, yes, you could hear influences of early trap soul and all that stuff that we just spoke about. But he truly brought the rain, and Manila as well.
But that was before Trap Soul, wasn't it?
Yes, it essentially was. It essentially was, and that's why I say music as a whole, it was moving in a direction that it hadn't yet gone, and it wasn't just this little backpack rap here and there. And I don't mean to shit on backpack rap,
and that's where he comes from, a slightly more rappish background with the District 36 stuff.
Exactly, and I love the backpack rap. Like, don't get me wrong,
it was so cool. Exactly, and I think we need more stuff like that of artists actively evolving. So it's really cool to hear you say that. And that See You in LA project to this day is one of my favorite things I ever worked on. And for me, Seth always made music that I knew right away when I was listening to it, that this is something that even if I had no personal investment in this or no involvement, I would listen to this. I would seek this out. I would hit add to library.
Yes.
I always felt that way about his music.
Yes. And I remember being like, man, I hope he doesn't just go down to LA and just start doing his thing down there. Like, I hope he stays a Vancouver artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And with Gray too, it's just like he's got one track, Time Zones. What am I thinking of? I don't know.
It's a group though.
Yeah, no. Oh yeah. No, they. Oh, they, for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know that track. They.
Yeah. It's, they.
Yeah, I was like, they is a dope group too.
That's
by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I thought you were going there. I was like, I didn't know there was a connection there.
Yeah.
So sorry. Who is the collective group? I'm so ignorant. I apologize.
It's the two guys in this that Azel guy, the producer too.
Yeah.
Azel North. He's dope.
Okay, dope, sweet. I'm just a fan, so I don't know. But I love their craft. Again,
Sullivan and Nico, I think, is the two guys.
Yeah, sure. I fucking love what they're doing. It's like
cool sound.
They added the rain. That's just the way I look at it.
I'm gonna steal that. You guys heard it here first. My good idea about creating the sound analogous to rain. I'm so glad I thought of that.
Jamie's he's so progressive. He's in a zone where no one else is there.
I think of words and I just use them. Original thoughts
in a poetic way. You heard it here first. Self-hired brand. You won't believe what Jamie said after this.
And it's going to be one of those websites where you got to click 12 times through the slideshow and just generate that ad revenue just to get the answer.
We got to talk to our producer.
Let's get that ROI. We need but anyways,
we need some more money. Anyways,
but it's true. So I think acts like that. I feel like we can build around that.
I agree, man. And if that does become our sound, and I say that strictly as a fan, I'm fucking so eager and happy to get behind.
And let's shout out another self-hired, a homie of all of ours. Let's shout out Tilo too, who's been at it a long time. He's elevated his game, and he's elevated from a position where, before he came on, he was this rugged street rapper kind of yelling at you. Quite frankly, I've even told him it was a lot for me to digest back then. And I think he was slept on because he had that real, his voice had so much bite to it, but he had bars, but I missed it because I would kind of write it off like, oh, this guy's just yelling at me in a bulletproof vest. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he was always a very clever artist. And if I go back and look now, I see what I was missing. But fast forward,
just to his recent project,
and just having the pleasure to work with him, and man, that guy has evolved as an artist. And that also, I feel, as far as like he's more on the street music side of things, which will always have a big place in hip hop. And I think that that sound that he created on that last project is something I could get behind too. And I think that's something that we can build around. And it's funny, we made that project over the course of a couple years.
Crazy.
And it was funny to watch like some of like, the things, the melodies he would do or the effects that we would put on his stuff. We just had free reign. He would give me free reign, just fuck me up, like put some effects on it. And it was funny, like I almost wish some of that stuff had come out further because we would do some things that I'd never heard before, and then a year goes by, and then I start hearing these things. I'm like, shit.
Yeah, we were doing that.
We could have been there, and it's all no one gives a shit after they've already heard. Well, they do, but you can't claim that after it already comes out. But I truly believe that he was really onto something, and we were creating some sounds that I'd never heard before, and still when it came out, still some really innovative sounds. But it was crazy. I think that he was a little ahead of his time, just like Seth was on that other project.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I think that the way Seth maybe could lead a kind of a commercial sound, if you will, crafting a more viable sound for everyday listeners, I think that T-Loc can and will be a leader in pushing that authentic street raw sound. You know what I mean?
Which will always be so important. And that's, at the end of the day, that's still to this day, maybe it's just because I grew up listening to, Queensbridge street rap, but at the end of the day, that's what I keep coming back to, that feeling. Even though if it doesn't have much bearing to my life experiences, I don't care. Neither does Goodfellas or any of the movies I watch. It doesn't have to. It gives me that feeling. Point. It's immersive. It's like watching a movie. So I think that street culture and hip hop will always be there.
That is fucking valid. That's a super valid point. Yeah, just about this isn't any more me than this is. You know what I mean? Like it's like especially as two white males sitting down talking about urban music in Canada. You know what I mean? So and again, I love your opinion on it, and I love the way you approach it, where you're it's almost as if you're outside of it. Like you're very in the culture. For God's sakes, you've been behind, some of the best music to come out of the West Coast. So it's just like you're very in it, but you have a lens where you take a step back and say, okay,
objective kind of.
Objective, excuse me. Very much so, where you don't seem to have judgments on people based on, like, you have so much time in the game where it's like, I know you've met these people. I know you have personal relationships with these people. You don't come off that way at all. You come off as someone that's, nope, never met any of these people. I'm just listening to the music. And I'm just seeing where their culture's going. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, I'm not going to not shot this guy out because he didn't say what's up at this club this one time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your ego is very away from it, which I think is something that's missing. We want to circle back to what's missing from us getting our sound. I'm a young guy. I don't have the answers, but I think the ego is there. I think it is 100%. We're in the way of ourselves.
Well, the ego is always going to be there, and it's always going to be there with artists. I mean, we're all creative types, and it's always there. But one thing I will say is, the ability to check that at the door when you get in the studio is essential, and it is a learned skill. It's not something that you do right away. So, like, imagine being a producer and someone comes in, you make a beat, and they're like, nah, that ain't it, chief. And you're like, what the fuck, what do you mean, this shit is fire? But it's like, the ability just to be like, okay, cool, well, how can we make this better, instead of having an emotional reaction? Geez, that takes time. The same is true for artists. Like, I think what really works, taking it back to what we talked about, relationships, once you build that rapport with someone in the studio, you can just cut the shit. Yeah. So if one of my homies is rapping, and they may have been rapping for 10 years, and they're one of the greatest rappers I've ever met, but sometimes that one bar needs tweaking, or it just doesn't sound right. You need to be able to have the rapport with someone to be like, you know what, love everything about it, but that fourth bar, we got to swap that for something else. And then just to be able to, like, trust that, not be like, nah, I like that. Yeah. Just to at least explore that idea, or for someone to be like, you know what, I think we really need to make sure that, like, the vocals have a bit more of a warmer sound. Like the knee-jerk reaction for, like, a younger creative or someone who's, hasn't gone through that process yet, is just to get defensive. And it's the easiest, simplest, and most natural reaction for any creative person, I don't care whether you're a producer, engineer, painter, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
Whatever. Yeah. The knee-jerk reaction is to be defensive or in your feelings or in your ego. But every good relationship that I have, and I'm sure this goes for anyone, is just being able to check that at the door and just have some fun and just do what is best for the end result.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it takes that, years of rapport.
It takes it, but once you get it, it's just how you operate. Mm-hmm. But I think some people are used to encountering people where it's always butting heads. Like, you're just used to working with another dude, and you guys are always butting heads. But when you find that relationship with someone, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, people don't like honesty a lot of the time, but it takes a lot of back and forth. Like, hey, this didn't work. Like, period. It didn't work. It's not. Listen, I'm in the studio with you. I'm behind the boards. Every part of me wants this project to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And that's how you have to be. You have to be invested.
Yeah, exactly. So, but hey, at the end of the day, bars 4 through 10, that whole topic you just touched on, I don't think it goes with a song at all. So let's scrap it. Or what if we put, like, what if you try to be experimental and it's just like, yeah, you know what, never mind.
No one was there to tell Future at the end of that J-Rock song or whatever that.
Oh my God.
No one was there. There was no one to tell Future, don't do that.
That was an internet sensation for a second.
His engineer passed away. R.I.P. I forget his name, but that guy wasn't there to tell him, don't do that.
Man, and whenever something super fucking atrocious comes out, I'm always like, someone had to approve that.
Several people. I'm sure Kendrick got that track back and was like, what the fuck is this?
La di da di da, sla mama da, da 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 da.
It's trash. It's just fucking trash.
I'm really glad you said that. But someone had to be like, Kendrick got it back. He was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool.
I don't think Kendrick said that.
You don't
I think he
so?
said, well, fuck, just what we got, right?
Yeah, because that was on the soundtrack for
Black Panther.
Black Panther. Oh, I love that.
People okayed that.
I love that soundtrack. I really did.
Think I've fantasized about this scenario. You know what I mean? Who am I to tell Future? But I honestly think, even as little old me, if I was in the studio, I like to have this fantasy where when that recording session was going down and I've got my opportunity to engineer Future, I would have found a way to be like, yeah, I love that whole verse, but I think just keeping with the vibe of what you were going for before would have been the move. Finding some sort of tactful way just to fucking X that shit.
Yeah.
That would have required tact, but I think I would have gone for it. I just would have gone for it.
And that's what makes you the engineer that you are. For
you would have been like, nah, man, get out of here. That's the best part.
Man, get this guy's polar bear and get him back into Canada, man. We're done with this guy. Yeah, Jesus
I remember
Christ.
I was recording this one for an early Snack the Ripper album. He had a feature from R.A. the Rugged Man, who's this dope OG rapper from New York, or not even, but, and I remember he came in, he was just clowning me, man. This always comes back to that. I remember I came in, I was wearing like a Billabong hat or something, and he comes in, he's like, look at this motherfucker. He's like, this motherfucker looks like he's in the band Fall Down Boy or something. And I was like, fuck. And he just kept calling me Ryan Seacrest. I was like, holy fuck. I'm getting roasted right now. It was a lot of fun, though.
Ryan Seacrest looking motherfucker.
Yo, Ryan Seacrest, punch me in. It was a real, that I had to grow as a person just to sit there and be like, absolutely, R.A. the Rugged Man. I'll punch in. Everyone's laughing at me. Fuck you guys.
Record. Pause.
No one else stood up for me. No.
My God,
what do you say to R.A. the Rugged Man? He's a beast. He's a character.
That's fucking
excellent
hilarious.
rapper too.
Yeah, and OG. A lot of people don't know.
But he was clowning me hard. Fuck you.
So, were you, okay, follow-up question. Were you in the studio when Project Pat came in for Mercs?
Project Pata? No, I think he got sent that verse.
Okay.
Project Pata. No, I wasn't there for that.
Because I would have loved to hear how that one went down.
Dude, Project Pat is a legend. I saw the 3-6 Mafia show when they came and performed at Plush or Gossip or whatever the fuck they call it now. And that was the best hip-hop show I've ever been to.
No way.
Those guys have so many hits. I'm gonna do a bit of a confession here. I'm not actually a huge fan of live rap music.
Oh.
Doesn't really do it for me in a lot of cases. I prefer the recorded. I prefer sitting in my car or in the studio with a nice system and taking it in as it sounds, with the nuances of someone's voice instead of, the hype. Yeah. The hype doesn't do it for me all the time. But what I will say is I learned a lot about how I think a hip-hop show should be from that 3-6 Mafia show. Granted, they have the catalog of hits to just do this, but sometimes they would just come up there and they would just play the hook of a song and then just stop it. Boom, air horns, fucking explosion sound effect. And it was just lit. Yeah. And they would just do a hook and then out and then just another track, just a verse and a hook. And they kept it moving. That's
dope.
What I like in live hip hop. I don't need to hear both 16s and both hooks every time. Some of those songs you do, but I think the culture has gotten so ADD that like a verse and a hook, keep it moving.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think
explosion sound effect, air horn.
Shout out Joe Budden.
Shout out everybody.
Shout out the entire fucking industry.
Yeah, glass breaking. Sometimes for I'll get DJs hitting me up. They'll be like putting together their sets, and I'll be doing the show mixes I have to make performance mixes for all the rappers of their songs that have the verses muted and then just the hook in there or whatever. But then I'll always get requests. Hey man, Their DJ, my DJ wants to also grab. Do you have any glass breaking bomb, sound effects and all that? So I'll throw in a pack
Funk
of
flex,
just a bunch of hype sounds. I got that folder just waiting there for DJs who ask for all the hype sounds.
Hey man, I like it.
So
like it a
I'm
lot.
propagating that.
So you're propagating that.
Part of the problem.
I like
I
it.
like it. I actually like this. I
No,
like the crazy
it too,
sound
man.
effects.
It's part of the culture.
It tells me what I should feel. Excitement.
Fucking 3-6 Mafia.
Yeah, Mafia. But those guys, shout out to 3-6 Mafia. They're so culturally relevant still. Like, I grew up listening to them. But when you listen to, you talked about like ASAP Mobb and all that stuff. And just when you listen to all the flows that exist today that are just exact syllable for syllable replicas of 3-6 Mafia flows.
I agree.
So cool.
I agree completely, man.
So cool.
It's so funny just having this conversation with you because you're so fucking in tune with all this gangster rap, and it's fucking hilarious.
Well, look at me.
But you're married. You dress well.
I told you I put on jeans for this, man. I normally wear sweatpants.
Exactly.
I was like, this is going to be on YouTube. I better wear jeans.
You're very well articulated. Like you're an intelligent guy. Not to say that shit isn't intelligent. It's just rough and rugged. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But like I said, it's like watching a movie. I love it.
Okay, sure. Maybe it's like watching a movie, but what happens when you're in the studio? And
I'm wilding out.
You're wilding out?
I'm like, can you please put more gun references in this bar? No, I don't know. You have to be in tune with it, though. You're right. That's an interesting point. Like, I don't know. You just channel it, but
like,
it's not.
Do you smoke weed?
I used to smoke weed, but I don't smoke weed anymore. I don't. It gives me crazy.
Smoke weed
It gives me crazy anxiety.
Fair.
Like, I'm just one of those people. You always hear those stories. Like, some people could just continue smoking tons of weed. I used to love smoking weed, but now if I smoke, like, even like a few, like, and man, everyone's smoking these like crazy like tunas and stuff, these heavy cushes. Like, if someone comes to the studio and I take even one hit of that, my day is fucking ruined. It's like what would happen to you if you hit a dab or something.
No, fuck no. Yeah, no, I'd be out. I
can't do it. I wish I could, because it'd be cool to like unwind and like listen to my mix through like a different lens, but I just can't do it.
Not at all, hey?
Not at all.
That's crazy. Was there like a time where you could and now you can't?
Well, yeah, I used to.
Like, was there a day where you just like
there was one
smoked
day
too much, had a couple edibles?
No, yeah, that's a different story. But I remember just like any kid from around here, I used to smoke a bunch of weed with my friends and just like drive around and be the activity back in the day was smoke some weed. But while you were smoking weed, you would talk about the next place that you were going to go to smoke weed. So we'd be blazing at one park. We'd have a nickname for it. Yo, let's go to Ghetto Park, man. Let's blaze. We'd be sitting there blazing, be like, what do you think we should blaze next? And then we'd be like, okay, let's hit the key, go down a lawn sale key and blaze. And it was just like this fucking nonstop thing of just blazing and talking about the next place you're going to go blaze. But it was fun. Go through, maybe if you're feeling extra trippy, go through the car wash on your way to the next one and look at the tricolor foam that comes down. There'd be like, and that shit looked like a Winamp screensaver or whatever. But but then there was just one day that I got baked and I realized I fucking hate this. Why am I smoking weed? Just smoking weed out of habit. And I just never, ever smoke weed anymore.
Oh my God, you got me dying. I'm sorry. That's just so funny.
There's this one time, and now I can say this with truth, but I remember going across the border one time and I was coming back and the border...
You can say it was true because it's legal now? Or?
I don't know, just because I don't smoke weed. I don't know.
Got you.
But this border guard asked me, he says, okay, do you have any alcohol or tobacco? And I look at him, I say, yes, I have an open pack of cigarettes. And he looks at me, he goes, opium cigarettes? I go, no, an open pack of tobacco cigarettes. I have some. And he goes, he looks me dead in the eye, there's just a pause, and he goes, have you ever smoked marijuana?
Oh my God.
And I look at him, I go, no, I've never smoked marijuana.
Yeah.
He's like, you're telling me that in college or anything, no one ever passed you a joint, you never smoked any weed? I looked him dead in the eye, I said, I have never smoked marijuana. He's like, you're telling me that at a party or at anything, you've never smoked marijuana? I said, absolutely not. Never smoked marijuana. Like, what did they expect you to say at that point? Maybe we can't put this in the final edit. I'll never be allowed back in the States. But it was just the crazy line of question. I went from having a pack of cigarettes in the car to he turned that into opium cigarettes and then this crazy line of questioning. So that was a trip.
People are wild,
People are wild. So those border guards are wild, man.
Yeah, I mean, how many times you hear there's a show being canceled because they got stopped at the border?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time.
We have Canada has really strict laws with like letting people across. Like if you have a DUI or something, a lot of the times you won't get across. Really? Is that true? Like the artists have problems with...
I remember getting that before too,
Yeah, no, that's super wild. So just to pivot back, not that the weed conversation is not incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to get you in your area of expertise, man.
Yeah, weed smoking is not my area of expertise. I hate to say it. But you were talking back about, smoking weed in the studio and getting that feeling.
No, for sure. And I get that. And I know that a lot of people, when they do smoke weed, they look at the mix different and they can see and hear different sounds in different ways. I get that too.
My clients, almost every single one of my clients smokes weed.
Yeah.
So there's Henny, Kevin will come through with Tilo, can drink the Henny. But what's really interesting is that people have this vision of the music industry. I think like the trope comes from the 80s where there's like cocaine and like bitches
strippers
and whatever. Like, honestly, first of all, I'll say that I can't even recall the last time I saw anyone use hard drugs in the studio. People smoke a lot of weed. People don't even drink that much. Like, it gets sloppy and you're there to be productive. So I gotta say that like the idea people might have of the studio, at least from the sessions that I do, is it's way less of a party than you'd think. Mm-hmm. People are there to work. You know what I mean? Everyone's time is valuable and you know what I mean? And everyone wants to leave with something good. So I think people would be surprised with the lack of party atmosphere. Like, I don't even like people bringing a bunch of homies. Like, I've got friends like Seth, he brings his friends like Vaughn and those guys. Like, those guys are super cool. They come in, they're not too loud, they're not belligerent, and they add to the vibe. They add constructive feedback. But I think as a general rule, especially unless if we have some rapport, like, I think a tip would be just don't bring your homies to the studio because it's not a party and a bunch of people talking a bunch of shit behind you on the couch while I'm trying to like pick a snare drum. Like, that's not a good look. So I'm surprised though. People would be surprised that it's much more professional in the studio than I think a lot of people would assume.
Well, I think that people respect the space too. I mean, it is. So the studio that you work out of, is that your studio? Or so is that one you've, I don't want to say built from the ground up, but it's one that you've constructed and is your space.
I became a part of it early on and it kind of evolved and grew into what it is today. And I've got an awesome partner, Mike Southworth, who co-owns the studio with me, and Jim Kwan, who runs the music school upstairs at the building that it's in. So I've got some great partners, but but the room I'm in basically is my room, and we have some other rooms, some great spaces that some other great engineers rent, and it's a really cool collective creative area down there.
That's amazing.
It's awesome. It's cool in a space like when you're working and then down the hall someone's working and you see in the hall everyone's getting coffee. It's like, oh, how's your session going? And there's that chit chat and banter.
That's
and then
dope.
someone from that studio, a rock guy, might be like, oh fuck, I'll come lay a riff. And like that happened on the Snacks last album. We needed a guitar solo, and one of the engineers down the hall is a sick guitar player, John Ellis, and he just came in and shredded a guitar solo on the song with Ritz. And that just happened organically because
with Ritz.
That Ritz song, All Out, the guitar solo on there, we just grabbed John from down the hall, said, hey, come play a solo. And that's just the kind of stuff that happens when you're in a room and it's not just some isolated kind of.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful creative energy, right? It's just all moving and vibing. And you talk about building a movement. That's probably part of it.
I think it is.
Let's get more studios like that. But I mean, just to loop back, that's probably why people don't come in and be belligerent. I wouldn't come in and if I was an artist and get fucked up when I'm trying to come into a good studio with a good engineer and really get shit done. Like,
I guess it just depends. I think once you hit a certain level, I mean, you see these clips of dudes in big studios and they got 20 dudes there and everyone's smoking weed and whatever. Like, okay, to each their own. But yeah, that's not really the vibe that we go for when we're working.
Right. No, I get that. So how much of your work is actual recording engineering? How much of it is you just going in solo and working with a mix?
Good question. I'd say just across the board what I do, or in the scope of a project?
I would say across the board.
I'd say probably about 40% of what I do is recording, maybe 30, and about 70% of what I do is the post-production.
Right. Well, it takes more time.
It takes more time, and I think that's a bit more of the... In what I do, that's a little bit more of where the art is. Like, I really love being in a room with the artist, and if I'm not in the room with the artist, we don't have the benefit of being able to bounce those ideas and share our collective thoughts on things and kind of distill it down to what we both think it should be. But that being said, like, there's a lot more of the art in what an engineer does is in the mix process and kind of doing the post-production.
Gotcha.
So I think an artist would be better off, like, if I had any tips, an artist would be much better off recording at home and getting a decent sound and then sending a song off for mix than recording in a big studio and taking the song home to mix. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I definitely know what you mean, for sure.
Obviously being in the studio, being in a big studio and working with someone, like, we've gotten to a point where home recording gear, like the barrier to entry is not the equipment, because it's proven thousands of times that you can make a hit on a laptop and record in a hotel room or your basement. The barrier of entry is not the equipment, it's It's just the people and the ideas.
Yeah.
If I was an artist, I could not record myself. I don't know how people do it. I think you would get way too in your own head, and you just don't have someone to bounce those ideas off. And I have a lot of respect for people who can just sit there and objectively kind of go through and make the right call and kind of feel confident that they're coming away with the best, cut of vocals that they could have had. Because for me, I don't know how they do that. You're too in your own head. So the magic of those studio sessions isn't like the cool, like $8,000 mic I record you through. That's here and there. It's more just the synergy and the energy and the creative vibes, right?
Mm-hmm. How do you look at the mix? Like when you really get those. So say you've been in the recording session with the artist, you have the vocals that you're all happy with, and now it's up to you to sit down and mix that. I've heard a lot of different, engineers or anyone that's doing the mix and the master. I've heard a lot of reference to. You close your eyes and you look at like a painting where it's like you have different, the lower end sounds are the darker colors and the blues, and the hi-hats are the yellows, and you try to paint, on a blank canvas and go from there. And everyone has these different metaphors of how they try to make something into a beautiful 3-minute or 4-minute, song. What's your approach?
That's a good question. I definitely don't, like, some people see sounds in terms of colors. I think there's like a name for that, like synthesia or something.
Sure,
there's a phenomenon for that. I definitely don't look at it that way. I tend to think of sound as more like something in a 3-dimensional space. I think of things as being close and far. I think the biggest thing in terms of mixing is contrast. I think that contrast in music is one of the things that everybody loves, but not everyone puts their finger on why they love something. But I think contrast is the most fundamental driving power in music. There is no loud without quiet to have the scale. There is no dark without light. There is no gritty without smooth.
What's an artist in your opinion that has great contrast?
I think any EDM acts. I think that dance music is the number one good example for contrast, because they'll have the low dynamic sections and the big build and then the intense drop.
Totally,
but if you want to dissect dance music a bit more, they'll have a smooth sound and then an edgy lead, but they won't, generally speaking, you don't want two edgy sounds. You want a smooth sound supporting the edgy sound, or you don't want too many redundant textures. So I think dance music in a lot of ways are leaders in sound design and stuff, and they exemplify a lot of those dynamic ranges that make music great. Or classical music is obviously the biggest, because they rely completely on the dynamics and the different textures. But in a modern kind of contemporary setting, dance music for sure.
You speak so much about feel, distance, objects, here, there. I can feel it, the shape of the room, yada yada yada. And people that know music know that those things are important, but a lot of people do look at it as color and
textures, colors,
texture.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas I feel as if you would describe a sound as scratchy, or you would describe a sound as distant or whatever. Where are you? Is this all the stuff that you're brewing up from inside you and you've really crafted and honed in, or is there real producers or engineers that you've looked to and been like, you know what? I really like where he's gone with that. I'm going to take that. I really like where this person has taken this sound or taken this methodology, and I want to take that and make it my own.
I think the way that you break it down is a very personal thing. Like, you could listen to someone and be influenced by them, and the end result in what you interpret, that's objective, but the subjectivity comes in the way that you parse that information and that you interpret that, and the way that you communicate that, if only to yourself.
Right.
So people may think of things in terms of colors or feels or emotions. Other people may think spatially. So I think everyone is going to internalize that and kind of have a different language or a different way of viewing those things, but all to the same means, that same ends. You know what I mean?
No, I get you. So then who would you say, or where would you say has crafted the way you approach it? Like, obviously,
I guess just time and coming into your own. And I think everyone, like myself, you learn by copying. So, and to this day, like, even the biggest pop writers or biggest mix engineers, everyone references. So you make sure that, your vocals have the clarity of a Drake record, and referencing is important. And I think that happens at all levels, because it helps you kind of just kind of come back to reality a bit, or get a bit more of your bearings in terms of where you've ended up, because you can be working on a song for 4 hours and really go off in a direction, but then if you reference it versus some other stuff, you realize maybe we have to pull it back in this direction a bit.
That goes back to what you're just saying about contrast. Light without the dark, right? I mean, you can't say you're working on a T-Loc and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, okay, let's relax for a second. Let's put on some Drake, or let's put on.
That's not quite the contrast I was speaking to. The more contrast I was speaking to, like, let's use a T-Loc song for example. He may have a chorus that's really big and aggressive, but if he's raging the whole song and just going hard, that chorus is not gonna have any impact. But if before the chorus there's a break where he's whispering, going, I just think that when like Drake, I've been running through the six with my woes, and like there's that contrast before it's quiet, and then you have that dynamic range that really shows, you know what I mean? So that's more the contrast I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I totally get you too. How long can you really sit in the studio? Like, obviously you have so much, people don't understand, it is a fucking time consuming thing. Like,
it takes a lot of time.
Just crazy amounts of time. How do you like hit reset? I mean, I know there's a lot of artists that just can't sit there and work on the same song for 6 hours. Like, how do you, if you're not there yet, the sound's not there, there's more work to do, but you've just been going at it and going at it and going at it. How do you go back and hit reset?
I think, you do find that, like, most of the time it flows pretty easily and you can just keep rock with it, but you do find those times or those sessions, or maybe especially if you're like writing a song from scratch, like that first hour or two can be kind of demoralizing because it's just not hitting, and you just got to keep throwing stuff until something sticks. So there is a bit of discipline that's required, and but it can be a bit soul crushing if it's not rolling right away. I think more from like a writing or a production standpoint, it can be hard to kind of push through, but eventually something always comes.
Right. It's just.
But and as far as like the stamina or whatever in the studio, I think that's just an acquired, just like a guitar player kind of gets calloused fingers. Like, you just get used to listening to the same thing on loop, sometimes for 10 or 12 hours.
The same hi-hat
at the end of that, though, you're kind of like, fuck, I'm done. Like, people are like, yeah, man, I'm gonna bump this mix on the way home in my car. I'm like, fuck that. Nope. I'm driving home in silence.
No, man, I hear you for sure. I should actually I should have led with this, man, but how did all of what you've been manifesting over the past 10, 15 years, how did that lead to you working on Riverdale?
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. I was filling in for someone who was filling in for someone. Like, I don't do a lot of film work. My partner does a lot of film work. But yeah, one of my other colleagues, he works for the Feldman Agency, and he had this gig that he was filling in for someone, I think. And then he couldn't take the gig, and then I ended up doing it. And it was a cool gig. And I think what really sold it is just the actors who are on that show. Like, for Riverdale, I'm working right with the actors. And
sorry, the actors are singing?
Yeah, that's what's cool about that show is that in that show, anytime like an actor sings, like if Archie's in the cafeteria and he busts out his guitar, that's actually the actor KJ singing his parts. Wow. Now they pre-record it and they're lip syncing to their own pre-recording.
Okay, sure.
But what's really cool is that any time a character sings in that show, it's the actual actor or actress themselves singing it. So I ended up just kind of filling in for someone, and I just kind of hit it off. I forget who the first session was. It might have been KJ who played Archie or whatever, but I just got along with them. And I think just kind of a relationship thing, and
super cool.
So that's kind of a cool, it's a cool credential, Netflix and doing all that. Again, it's not, I'm a rap producer, so it's not my bread and butter, but it's been a really cool experience. And working with the actors and actresses, they're super cool. KJ and Camila and Lily and stuff. It's cool. Do
you see yourself doing more of that in the future, or you want to stick to the rappity rap?
I'm open to it, but I think I think my heart is more on the musical side of thing and in the urban music side of things. So if I was going to pick how to spend my days, I like to pepper that in. Variety is the spice of life, but I wouldn't fill my weeks with it. No.
Got you, for sure. Where would you say you're at? I mean, you're a very established guy. I mean, you're well versed and you've been through a lot. You've seen a lot of artists come through the studio. You've had a lot of sounds. You've worked in, whether it's TV or urban. You've been around. And so where do you see yourself? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish at this point? Like, you've made it, and you have your own studio, you're working with high caliber artists. What's next for you?
I think just continuing to evolve. I mean, it's never enough. I think I ask myself that question sometimes, like, man, wouldn't like 16-year-old self think this is so cool? I mean, you got your own studio, you make a living making music, you know what I mean? But there's obviously still so far to go. There's so much to build, and my dream would be just to continue on the path and, just try and do everything I can to keep elevating and be a part of what we were talking about earlier, which is helping establish a scene for Vancouver and a sound. And just my dream is for someday for other markets to be copying what we're doing out here. I want to play a part of that. And I feel like me and the others out here that are working so hard, I feel like it's totally obtainable. And I think we're on that path. And I just want to continue pushing for that. That's the next step.
Yeah,
it's kind of an intangible. I don't know when that's going to be, but I think the only thing that we can say is just keep working hard and try and be creative and just keep working.
That's a very beautiful and humble response. I get it. But if you were to pick maybe, I don't know, a couple of artists out from the universe and say, if you could have person X, Y, and Z roll through your studio in the next 3 weeks, who would they be?
I think Black I'd like to work with. I think he's a super creative guy. I think just for the sheer commercial success, obviously I'd like to work with Drake.
Which is probably not that far off from our reality, man.
Yeah, I think he's great. And that's a good question. I haven't thought too hard about that. But someone like Black, like who just has a really cool, innovative sound, like his music really speaks to me. I think I would like to work with someone like A$AP Rocky or someone like that, or the whole A$AP Mob, and do a project with them.
That'd be very
cool. I like that style of music.
East Coast,
East Coast, but wavier,
Yeah, no, I got you for sure. Listen, man, it's only a matter of time. I mean, as you know, the community of hip hop is smaller than everyone thinks, and a lot of people know the same people. I'm sure that it won't be long until all of a sudden you're filling in for 40 or like who knows.
Sure. Hey, fruition, put it out there, man. Put that to the universe,
please.
But in the meantime, I think it's important that we all just keep working and kind of elevating what we're doing, and I think myself included, just trying to put more effort into building a community and trying to build up other people, even if it's not directly within your circle or directly benefit you. I think that's one thing where if I had to kind of critically step back and think of ways that I can improve, I've just been focused on building my business and building my clientele and, trying to solidify what I'm doing from a business perspective and just help my immediate clients and do that. But I think now that we're in a bit better of a position and, we got a little bit more time or to be able to pick and choose, I think maybe the prudent thing to do moving forward would be just to try and think about building that and not necessarily thinking as short term. Right. What that means, I don't know. But it's food for thought.
No, totally. I totally get it. We've been speaking for, 2+ hours here, and you haven't mentioned awards or accolades once. I mean, you're an award-winning guy. You Juno nominated. That doesn't seem to be on your radar at all. Am I wrong? Or I mean, these are not.
Well, they're things like you like them and it's cool. And don't get me wrong, like all like the awards that I've won are sitting right there on a table. So when you walk in the studio and rapper and his stone homies come and say, "This is why we fuck with this guy, man. Look at these awards." It's like I like them. They're cool to have. But I think just like anyone who does this for a living, you realize that it's more just about the work that you put out. And I don't want to say this with some sort of false sense of humility. It's cool. And on my website, if you go there, it says, Juno Award nominated, 5-time blah winner or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I think within the industry on a day-to-day, it's more just about the work you put in, right?
Right.
Or like what the last project you put out sounds like. That's where your work comes from. I don't care if someone won a Grammy in 1993. Like, what does the last couple projects you did sound like? So, just try and focus on like the end result, because that's where all your work comes from, and that's where your respect comes from.
Yeah, no, man, I get it. Like I do, but at the same time, it's like, I guess you're already there. I mean,
well, those the awards. I think that's more things that you put on a grant application if you're looking for funding, because those are important things. Because in a certain sense, it kind of
elevates you.
It just makes it clear that it's not just all, you're not trying to make things look good on paper. There's actual tangible results. The real results are actually in the music, but you have to dive deeper to actually hear that and dissect it and take the time to press play and listen to it. But if you're just looking at someone's one sheet, you could say, okay, he's won a Juno Award or whatever. That's just an easy at a glance, but you have to dive deeper to look into the music.
Man, it's super respectable. You seem like a very practical, very tangible, like, no, it's the devil's in the details. It's about the work that you put out. It's about the music that you're working with. It's about who's there and what are you creating day to day. And I think that's a practitioner approach that we should all take, honestly.
Exactly. When someone hits you up and they want to work, they don't say, "Hey man, like I saw that you won a
Won a
Juno or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I think that may play a factor, but 99 times out of 100 it's because they're like, hey man, I heard that T-Loc project and his vocals sound really clear on that. Like, you know, how much does a mix and master cost?
Yeah.
That's, you know, change T-Loc for whatever project, but that's like 90% of my interactions with people start like that.
Yeah, no, and that's beautiful, man. So what are you working on now? Like, can you say what projects, what albums, what's coming up next? When's the next Merc album? When's the next Seth K album? When's the next T-Loc album? Give me the details. Give me the dirt.
I got a new project. One of the things I'm most excited about is Seth K has a new album, but I have to clarify, he has rebranded himself to Side. So his next project is coming out as Side. So
abbreviated? No,
just SIDE.
Okay, cool. Is there a story behind that?
I think he just wanted to. He really felt strongly about reimagining, like, and being able to kind of step into a new style of artistry. And I think part of that was leaving the old name behind. Trust me, we had some heated discussions, me and his team, like leaving behind those algorithms and the build on the Seth K. You know, some of those songs have 1 million plays or whatever. And it's just to walk away from that, I think was a bold move creatively. And he knows. I talked to him several times. Are you sure you want to do this? But that aside, what I will say is that his new music is really cool. And it really plays into that cloudy, rainy.
Sweet.
It's got a real cool glow to it. So I think that's one project that I'm excited to release. It's pretty much done. It's almost fully mixed.
When can we expect it?
I know. I thought it was going to be already out by now. I don't know. But I would say within the next few months.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Early spring, December, January, something like that. And hopefully.
Yep. We'll see. But yeah.
That's, it's funny because it's not like he's walking away from something that wasn't working.
Yeah. And hopefully we can just continue and parlay that momentum into this. It's still the same thing. It's still the same music. He's just kind of taken what he's done in a bit more of an evolved direction, a little less rap, a little more melody. But I think in doing that, he's creating a bit more of a lane for himself. And it's something that it'll be less easy to compare him to people, which something he might have faced in the past a bit. And I think he's really stepped into his own on this new project.
Sweet. Hey, mate, listen, I'm super excited for these projects coming out. I'm excited for you being at the forefront and a humble and wholesome dude like yourself actually being at the forefront and working with these artists, because I know that you won't take credit for their work, but at the end of the day, your influence is shaping what will soon be our culture. And hopefully, one day Seattle's like, man, we really need to figure out what they're doing up there in Vancouver. That's the goal. That's the goal. That would be amazing. And I'm happy that you're at the forefront of that. And I'm happy that you took the time and sat down with us, man. It's been I've fucking learned a lot, man. This has been fun. This has been great. I love sitting down and hanging out with people that are smarter than me and more intelligent and fucking have gone further and gone into their mastery and really picked their minds. So I appreciate the time, man. And we're going to look forward to those albums. If you haven't already heard T-Loc's album, if you haven't already heard Side's album, if you haven't heard Cole Merck's album, please go back. Yeah, check out Snack's new album too. It's a crazy album. Absolutely. He's on tour right now with Merck, I believe. One thing I will shout out for those guys to big up them is both that Merck album and the Snack album both charted in the Billboard Top 50. That's amazing. So that's one accolade I will shout out and kind of share in some glory. That was a big kind of a proud moment for us, was to see those two local guys there charting on Billboard. So that's one thing I'll shout those guys out and kind of maybe kind of big that one thing up. That was a proud moment for all of us. That's amazing, yeah, man. Anyways, man, I appreciate the time. ThinkSpace listeners, man, I appreciate you guys. If you sat through the whole thing, my guy, there's gonna be a lot of good tidbits through here. And Jamie, thanks for coming through. Look forward to having you on when you win that Juno. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Till next time.